Hello. Good evening. How are you doing? I had to yawn right when I wanted to unmute myself. This is fine. Hello. We are back. Back with more reading. Back with more stumbling over my words. Back with hopefully no frame drops. But yeah, time to get started on the right side of all of these. Which is sure to be a few. Hopefully. Listen, if there's another one that is as long as the billiard story, then I'm gonna be very upset. Not gonna lie. Like, one billiard story was enough. I don't need another. Okay. What kind of stories will we hear today? I don't know. I have no clue what's still left. From Jeanette Annette, jeanbean19@yahoo.com. Subject: Spirit Beacon leaking. On January 25, 2014, to admin@terminalvelocity.org. Hi Madeline. This is Jeanette from the location down by the docks. I believe we met in person for the first time last month. I was opening up this morning and noticed that most of our spirit juice was gone. I checked the map and saw that you're the nearest location with a spirit beacon. I think you may have drained some of our supply. Honest mistake, I'm sure. But if you could stop running your spirit beacon during peak hours, that would be much appreciated. Thanks, and looking forward to working with you in the future. Jeanette. Spirit beacon leaking. Hi Madeline, hope you got my previous message. Just wanted to give an update on the spirit juice situation over here. I had several bottles that I marked last night just to confirm the issue, and when I got in this morning the levels were below where I marked them. We're definitely losing spirit juice, and you're the only spirit beacon close enough to be affecting us. Please moderate your use to reasonable levels. I don't think this should be a problem as long as you're not running your beacon overnight. Again, not trying to assign blame here, but please be considerate to folks at other locations. Thanks, Jeanette. Madeline, we are draining spirit juice over here so fast that if I sit and watch I can see it disappearing from the bottle. You're the only spirit beacon that is even remotely close to where we are, so we really need to stop. If it's affecting us, then it's probably affecting other locations. This is completely unacceptable. Fix this now. Jeanette. Hey Madeline, care to explain why you weren't at the terminal today when I showed up? I spoke with a girl named Ashley who said you decided to take the day off. What a coincidence. I was not impressed by the crying routine you had your do. Honestly, you should be ashamed of using a child's fake tears to try and hide from a situation that you caused. Turn off your beacon. I don't want to be the bad guy here, but if you don't do something, I'm going to have to get the council involved. From Clarence from Misplaced Cutlery. Hi Maddie, this is Clarence from the docks location. Just want to give you a heads up. This morning we found out that the site manager we recently hired, I believe you met Janet last month, was leaving spirit juice in untempered glass bottles, and we had a bit of a leak. We ended up having a bit of a problem with some animated cutlery. We have the situation under control over here and we're mostly sure everything is accounted for on our end. Unfortunately, this started happening about a week ago, which might be enough for something to wander off far enough that we wouldn't be able to detect it. Very unlikely that this happened, but just want to give you a heads up in case a possessed steak knife wandered off far enough to find your beacon decides to pay you a visit. Sorry about the situation. Rest assured that the person responsible for this won't have any opportunities to mess up anything of this magnitude again. By the way, are you planning on going to Em's birthday next month? Regards, Clarence. Maddie, ciao. Hi Clarence, sorry I missed your message earlier. I no longer use this address. Please use contact for anything related to terminal business. Hope you enjoyed Em's birthday party. I don't remember why I couldn't attend, but I'm sure it was a good reason. Maddie. This is me when I ignore emails and hope the people will just give up when they don't get an answer. It wasn't even our fault, apparently. It wasn't even our fault, and this woman just goes off on us. Also using our full name, which we apparently do not like very much. Hi, I would like to click this one. Advisory role. Maddie was washing her hands when Ashley poked her head around the corner. Here to confess something or here to ask for something? Thought Maddie to herself as she dried her hands and turned to face the girl. The grin on Ashley's face confirmed that it was the latter. Maddie arched an eyebrow and turned to the coffee grinder. Ashley stepped around the corner and stood close enough to Maddie to occupy a field of view. Every time Maddie turned, Ashley again repositioned herself. She was waiting for Maddie to notice her. After a minute, Maddie decided that having Ashley hovering around her was more distracting than indulging whatever it was she wanted to talk about. What do you need, Ashley? I don't need anything. Though now that you mention needing things, I think you might need something. Such as an advisor. Ashley smiled triumphantly as she delivered the word. What would I need an advisor for? To advise you, of course. And I suppose you have a suggestion for who I should take on as an advisor? Well, now that you mention it, I'm not too busy. I could be your advisor. Because you're an expert on advising. That's what an advisor needs to know about. And what makes you an expert on advising? I've been learning a lot about advisors. They get to help make important decisions, and then the person advising has to take responsibility for them. That's why I'd make a good advisor. Because you don't want to take responsibility for your actions. I take responsibility for my advice. But if someone follows my advice, then that's their decision and their responsibility. Duh. I don't think I need an advisor. Oh, but you do! And you're always complaining about how busy you are? Yes. So busy that I don't have time to have extra counseling sessions with you. I'm not going to be your counselor, Maddie. I'm going to be your advisor. The difference being a counselor counsels and an advisor advises. Of course. Busy people always seem to have advisors. The Prime Minister has advisors, presidents too. All the most important people have advisors. The advisors tend to be more experienced than they are. Advice travels from those who have it to those who need it. Well, I'm doing fine, so I don't need advising. But you could do with some advising, and I'd be happy to give you all the advice I've got. Plus, you're more important than I am. You're kind of like the Prime Minister of the terminal, or the President of the terminal, or whatever. The kind of person who needs advisors. I see. So, am I hired? You already have a lot on your plate, I'm sure. Nope. I've got lots of time free. In that case, you have time to wash these dishes for me, said Maddie, tossing a drying rag to Ashley. Let me know when you're done. Wait! I'm only free to advise. I'm physically fatigued from a long day of work. Only my mind has extra processing power. I can only help you if it's by advising. Well, advising has physical responsibilities associated with it, right? Like, sometimes an advisor will go to places to get important information. I guess so. I can do anything that relates to giving you information. In that case, Advisor Ashley, I need you to give me a report on which of these plates looks best when it's sparkling clean. But they're all dirty right now. Exactly. Time for you to do some investigative research. See ya. Aww. That's mean. That is so mean. Why would you do that? Alrighty, who's Beth? And is it a long story? It's alright. Let's go, little girl. The man standing in front of Beth smirked. The knife he held seemed almost slight compared to his massive hands, but that didn't make it any less intimidating. Finish this one quick, came a call from behind the knife holder. 3 men stood behind him, wearing expressions which ranged from amused to bored. Beth felt her palm getting sweaty and loosened her grip on the knife in her right hand, sliding her thumb along the guard to reassure herself that its shape hadn't changed since the moment she picked it up. Take your friend's advice, Beth said to the man who was menacing her. Finish this quick. After all, I'm just a little girl. Well, as little as any 15-year-old girl could be. Can do, said the man, and he drew his knife up for an overhead swing. The man's movement suggested that he didn't know how to use a knife. Not really. He was swinging the knife like he'd swing a fist, like he was trying to bludgeon on her with it. Like he'd never really used the knife before. He was stupid. Mercifully stupid. She tried to reassure herself of the fact, trying not to lose her resolve. He lunged toward her as he brought the knife down, and Beth raised her left arm. She felt the edge of the knife hit her skin, but the impact of the blow caused the man to lose his grip on the knife. An opening. Beth grabbed the attacker's knife arm and pulled him toward her while thrusting her own knife toward him at chest level. She drove the knife into the man's chest with all the force she could muster, and he fell to the ground and gasped as Beth released her grip on him. The man lay on the ground and put a hand to his chest, moaning, "Son of a bitch. You doing okay down there?" The man sat up and patted his chest. "I didn't expect to lose to a girl." "No. Well, that too, but I didn't expect it to hurt this much. These well practiced knives are no joke. If I'd stepped any harder, I might have broken a rib." The man stood up. "You got a name, girl?" "You can call me Beth," she said, extending a hand. He shook it with a look of hesitation. "I'm Kyle. I've got to say, Beth, that was kind of a cheap trick." "How do you mean?" "I mean the way you blocked my knife with your arm. It just bounced right off. You couldn't do that if you were using real knives." "He's right," said one of the spectators. "Not really a fair fight with the rubber knives. I'd like a rematch." Yeah, said one of the spectators. Rematch. The others began chanting along with him. Rematch, rematch, rematch. A voice sounded from above. I thought I told you guys to keep it down. Everyone spun around to face the stairs leading up to the ground floor. Maddie was leaning over the railing of the staircase with a stern look on her face. She tapped the poster on the wall. Beth took a moment to glance at the sign. Fight Club rules. 1. Don't quote Tyler Durden. 2. Seriously, no Tyler Durden quotes. 3. Always assume your opponent is mortal. Practice weapons only. 4. Be considerate to other guests. Keep noise to a reasonable level. We don't have many rules here. Please don't make me kick you out of the basement.
Hello! Good evening.
Everyone else in the room cast their gaze downward, looking ashamed with several mumbled apologies. Maddie nodded and climbed back up the stairs, content that she had made her point. Seriously though, not really a fair fight without real knives. Beth walked over to the edge of the room and lifted a rug, revealing 2 steak knives. Several whispers erupted from the small crowd. Where'd you get these? I swiped them from upstairs. They're not exactly combat gear, but these blades are fit to cut through flesh, whether it's a cooked steak or a human arm. Beth held one of the steak knives by the blade, presenting its handle to Kyle. If you've already broken one rule tonight, how about breaking another one? I won't get hurt. I mean, I can still feel the pain, but, you know, I'm not afraid of getting stabbed. Neither am I. But don't say you're ready for this if you're not ready to bleed. She turned the knife over in her hands, pressing her thumb against the tip just enough to draw a single drop of blood. Kyle grinned. Do I look like I would be here if I was afraid to die? Maybe not. I will now proceed to violate every single one. I mean, I don't know who the fuck Tyler Durden is, so... I'm assuming that's someone who is in the movie Fight Club? Or involved in the Fight Club movie? Fight Club is a movie, right? Right? Fight Club is a movie? Perhaps. I don't know. Might be a movie. I wouldn't know. I'm not well versed in movies. Beth swung a knife in a horizontal slice and the crowd let out an ooh. Not too loud, she said. Eyes were fixed on Kyle, but she was speaking to the crowd. Last thing he wanted someone coming down here investigating a noise complaint. She heard a few grumbles in the crowd, but they quieted themselves. Everyone understood her meaning. Playing with real knives in this manner was the kind of thing that was strictly verboten? What? Why is that German? Huh? What? Forbidden! And no one wanted to be on the wrong side of Maddie's bad mood. Even those who didn't fear death quaked in their boots a bit at the prospect of Maddie's wrath. Fight Club rules are timeless. First rule of Fight Club, don't mention Fight Club or something? She made a few more horizontal slices with her blade, cutting the air.
Das Berühren der Figuren mit den Pfoten ist verboten.
Was the kind of thing people did to warm up the crowd, but Beth was unconcerned with what people thought about how she fought. Her movements with the knife were the only practice she was going to get with this knife, and she did her best to memorize the feel of the blade as it cut through the air. It was a terrible knife for a fight like this, a serrated edge, It was designed for ripping and tearing cooked meat that stood still on a plate, not fresh meat that was attached to a body prepared to evade its cuts. This was an entirely different kind of knife fight than the one before. When playing with practice knives, the goal was to strike the opponent in the torso. When playing with live knives, common etiquette dictated that stabs to the softer parts of the torso, like the chest or stomach, stabs that were most likely to be immediately fatal to a normal person, were strictly against the rules. In this battle, the goal was simply to draw blood. A cut to the arm or leg would do. Kyle was the first to make a move. He tried to feint to the right before hopping back to his left foot and swinging at her, but he made such an obvious show of telegraphing the attack that Beth had stepped out of his way well before his attack came. Kyle grinned. I guess I'm going to outsmart you. Beth kept her steely gaze trained on Kyle's right hand, the one that held the knife. Well, I guess I'll just have to outspeed you. This time he stepped straight forward with a thrust of his arm. It was the first time he had made an attack without fully committing to it by moving his feet. Beth had been afraid that he might try this. Kyle was nearly half a meter taller than her, and he had finally figured out that his long arms gave him a tremendous advantage against Beth and her shorter reach. The stab was directed at her shoulder, and she managed to duck out of the fray fast enough, but there was no time for her to offer a counterswing before Kyle pulled back and stepped again, this time attempting to strike at where her arm had been had she not moved just a moment sooner. Beth backed up, giving Kyle space and hoping to bait him into making a big attack, but he seemed content to continue attempting the one tactic that had come close to working for him. As she stepped back, he stepped forward, and only after planting both feet did he go for another stab. There was nothing Beth could do but step back, giving him even more space to maneuver, all the while becoming increasingly aware of how close her back was coming to the wall behind her. She needed to do something to throw him off balance and find a way to reset. She stepped to the side, forcing Kyle's next attack to take a horizontal arc to reach her, and as soon as she saw the blade coming, she swung her own blade. She heard the ting of metal hitting metal as the two blades made contact, and the serrated edge of Kyle's knife hit the smooth edge of hers. They stayed like that for about half a second as Beth kept forcing Kyle's knife to the side, and with their knives still locked, she strafed around him until her back was no longer against the wall, placing the two of them on equal footing. This would never happen in a real knife fight, Beth thought to herself. She had been saved only by the serrated edge of Kyle's knife. He grinned, apparently enjoying the moment. Yes, Kyle, we're doing it just like in the movies. I know that when you think of a knife fight, you think of two swords or two Jedi facing each other with blades locked, but it's not supposed to go like this, and right now you're about to lose the biggest edge you had. She finally slid her knife out of the lock, releasing Kyle, who seemed completely oblivious to the fact that their footing had changed. He was so bad at this that he didn't even have an awareness for what it meant to have her with her back against the wall. But what Kyle lacked in brains, he made up for in physical size, and Beth was still left with the problem of how to get around his reach. Kyle was doing too good of a job of controlling the space between them. She couldn't go straight for his chest like she had before, not that she intended to strike him in the chest, she hadn't forgotten the rules. His reach made it equally difficult to go around him. Going over him was certainly out of the question, which meant that the opening had to be from underneath. A step to the groin would certainly be against the spirit of the rules, but she might be able to get a good shot at his leg if she got close enough to the floor. But there was no way to get under his arms from a standing position. If she was going to attempt a leg strike, she would have to commit to it. She needed to create an opening. She feinted sideways toward the wall. Unlike Kyle's attempt at a feint, Beth's move to the left served the dual function of placing her weight in a perfect position to push off her left foot, moving right when Kyle moved left. She made as if to swing at him from the right, which prompted Kyle to step in that direction. And with his body moving left and his arm moving right, the reach of his arm was effectively reduced. Reduced enough for her to slide under it? There was only one way to find out. She bent her knees, falling forward like a sprinter leaning forward on the starting blocks. There it was. He was twisted to the right, reflexively trying to kick at her, allowing her to lunge forward and place her knife directly in the path of his swinging leg. He was grunting. "Whoa!" he let out a panicked yelp. No, he wasn't twisting, he was falling. And with the way her knife was pointed up, it was positioned to anchor itself directly into his belly if he fell on top of her. She reflexively tossed the knife aside, hearing it clatter to the floor as Kyle's weight came down on top of her. His tumbling knee struck her directly below the chest, and she felt herself falling back, her head falling to the floor, until the moment she felt the impact of the ground and on the back of her head, and everything went black. Well, that is unfortunate. Imagine someone who's like, I don't know, twice your size loses their footing and falls on top of you. That is not good. How does this end? Oh, Maddie's back. What the hell is going on down here? As Maddie descended the stairs, the huddle broke, revealing a girl sitting on the floor looking dazed. The man leaning over her spoke. "Beth, are you—" I'm fine, said Beth, swinging her arms around, clearly only barely aware of her surroundings, but aware enough that she didn't want to give off the appearance of not being completely in control of the situation she was in. Maddie got down on the floor next to her. "You're bleeding." Beth touched the back of her head, then looked down at the pool of blood. "Sorry, I must have fallen and hit my head." Maddie looked up. "You, big guy, go upstairs and ask Che for an ice pack." She helped Beth sit up. "You can see okay?" "Yeah, just a little dizzy." Maddie inspected the wound on the back of her head. "Doesn't look deep, just broke the skin." "Good news, kid. No permanent brain damage for you today." Beth apparently had enough control of her senses to roll her eyes. "Lucky me!" "Of course, I'm questioning whether you weren't already brain damaged, because I'm guessing those two knives on the floor have something to do with your present condition." Maddie looked up at several members of the crowd that were sitting by, nervously and passively watching. "Am I wrong?" She paused. "I'm not hearing any denials. Come on, people." 2 actual rules, and you managed to break both of them in one night. The man Maddie had sent upstairs came back down with an ice pack she had requested. Shay said he can bring first aid if not necessary. "Here," she said, handing the ice pack to Beth. "Hold that against the back of your head. I'm not sure if it does anything to blood flow, but it'll at least numb the area." Why would I want it to be numb? Better than being in pain? Then again, I'm talking to someone who just decided a fun way to spend an evening would be trying to avoid the wrong end of a steak knife. Maddie scanned the rest of the group. "Anyone else have any wounds? Don't hide them if you do." "It's just me. No, he even got cut." "And no one's going to get cut," said Maddie, looking up and speaking to the crowd. "Come on, people. I don't care who you are, as long as you hear you have real blood, and I can't have you bleeding all over my floor. You can't just wash bloodstains out of a wood floor." Maddie pointed to the staircase. I think you all should find something else to do. You can stick around upstairs, but if you cause any trouble, we do have ways of removing you, and no one wants that. Some of you, this might be your last night here. Don't force us to put it to a swift end. Everyone shuffled towards the staircase, including Beth, who had managed to stand up. Maddie grabbed her by the arm. Not you. You're not moving until that wound on the back of your head stops bleeding. It already has. Let me see, said Maddie, examining the wound. Sit back down. Beth obeyed and took a seat cross-legged on the floor. Maddie crouched next to her and began cleaning and dressing the wound. Why do you do this? Beth countered Maddie's question with one of her own. Why do you have a fight club that's so formalized that there are rules posted on the wall? I understand why people do it in general. People spend time without a physical body, and when they get it back, then they want an adrenaline rush. They want some kind of thrill. What I want to know is why you? Why does a girl who looks like she can't be older than 16 years old want to get into blood sports? You don't know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a teenage girl, but I never felt the urge to start getting into fights with men twice my size. Beth turned away. You don't know what it's like to want to feel something. To feel so numb that you want to cry and then be unable to cry. You just feel nothing. That's what it's been like for me. I just wanted to feel something. I just wanted to feel like I was alive for a change. Spoiling photos of pain to escape the numbness. I'd agree if you didn't say it condescendingly like that. Like getting punched not enough pain for you. I wanted it to feel real. Beth looked at the ice pack and felt the back of her head, which seemed to have stopped bleeding. You want to know the truth? I wanted this to happen. That's why I came here. Maddie shook her head. I can't empathize. It's clear that I've never gone through what you have. So, in the absence of empathy, the best I can offer you is my sympathy. Are you done bleeding? Have you gotten your fill of thrills? Yes to both. You'll probably be fine without a bandage. You're lucky it was only this bad. You can stick around if you want to, but try not to do anything too physical. I wouldn't want you to open up that wound and start bleeding everywhere. I think I have had enough for one night. I'll see myself out. If you're ready to go, then go. But I don't want to feel like I'm chasing you out. Beth followed Maddie upstairs. Kai was waiting for them by the bar. Beth, I'm sorry about the whole, Don't be. I had a lot of fun tonight. Me too. You really had me on the ropes toward the end. In fact, I feel like I couldn't leave this world on a better note. I just thought I'd stick around to see if you were okay. I was just about to leave too. You want to leave together? I'm curious about how, things work. Sure. The two fighters walked to the door of the cafe and walked down the catwalk toward the terminal exit. You're a real fighter. Thanks, said Bev, politely responding to his compliment. Not like me, I mean. You really know what you're doing. Bev smiled. Kai wasn't praising her just to praise her. He had actually noticed her skill. Where did you learn to fight like that? Beating people like you? I guess I'm just the last in a long line of guys who had no idea what they were doing. Hopefully not the last.
Yo! How you is? I'm good. How you? Hope you fine.
They reached the end of the terminal and Kyle got ready to step out. Hold on. Shall we do this together? Kyle blinked. Sure. Alright, on 3. 1, 2. On 3, they both stepped over the threshold. Beth stumbled onto the street and looked around her. Kyle was nowhere to be seen, somehow vanished from existence. Beth looked over her shoulder through the still open door and paused a moment before pulling out her phone to call for a ride.
It's good aim, thank you.
That's good.
That's good.
Okay, what else is there? Storage jar, shelves on the right side. Shelves on the right side. Right? Jar on shelves on the right side. Jar on shelves. Jar on... No? This one. Yes, thank you, Duolingo. I am aware. Maddie opened an unearthed jar. Inside she examined the contents. Rotten. She began pouring them down the sink. I hate poppy seeds, she muttered to herself. I won't tolerate that kind of hate speech here. Too bad the rules aren't used to make, old man. You should have thought of that before you handed me the keys. I could help you get the keys back. I've got a magnetic grabber that the keys are metaphor. They're not some kind of magical talisman that grants ownership over an establishment. But there is a magical talisman that grants ownership over the establishment. Yeah. It's called a deed. And this deed entitles me to certain privileges, such as expressing my hatred for poppy seeds. Hate is not good for the soul. Hatred corrupts the soul. Hey, I'm new here. But, are you talking literally? Does hatred actually corrupt the soul? No, hatred does not corrupt the soul. Nor will poppy seeds, despite being a distant cousin of the bay leaf. It's a good thing, because Maddie's soul is full of hate. Trust me, I've seen the ultrasound. Once again, as the new guy, I gotta ask, are you talking literally? No, hatred does not show up on an ultrasound. And I assume the thing about bay leaves corrupting a soul is also a metaphor. Oh no, that part was entirely literal. Bay leaves absorb bitterness. You always remove the bay leaf from something before eating it. Bitterness as in figurative bitterness. I was talking literally in the sense that bay leaves absorb figurative bitterness. But yes, they also absorb literal bitterness. I am so confused right now. Me too! I don't actually know what a bay leaf is. Just don't absorb a bay leaf into your soul and you'll be fine. It's not the kind of thing that happens accidentally. Are you sure? And because I think I might have accidentally ingested a bay leaf one time, my friend's grandma made this big pot of chili. The soul is not connected to your digestive tract. It's not your gut. So unless you're inhaling your food, it's not going to be a problem. Ooh, okay. Again, new guy here, soul, respiratory system, that's the thing. Oh yeah, why do you think people are so into burning herbs and inhaling them? I always assumed that was just how, I don't know exactly how cannabis works, but it's like psychoactive. What? No, not that herb, like people who burn incense. That's something new. That's why you always have to watch out for when herbs go bad. Someone might accidentally inhale some of them, yet another reason to hate poppy seeds and their short shelf life. Kishan's eyes narrowed. How long does it take for poppy seeds to go bad? These went bad in a matter of months. A matter of months? How many months are we talking here? Maybe 30. Kishan did some counting on his fingers. 30 months is 2.5 years, if I'm not mistaken. Che piped up. You left that show of poppy seeds for 2.5 years? Maddie nodded. As I said, a number of months. 30 is a number. 30 is an injustice. How have you not touched poppy seeds in all this time? People don't actually like poppy seeds. People just like the muffins they come in. If you give them the muffin without the poppy seeds, they'll like it even more. Poppy seeds just make everything worse. People love poppy seeds. Me, for instance. I have a great love for the humble poppy. Really? Then how is it that you've never touched this jar of poppy seeds in the past 30 or so months? It's been sitting on a spice shelf. She's a base. I don't think I've ever eaten them. She shrugged. I like lots of things. Evidently, during the past 30 months, I found things I've enjoyed more than the humble poppy seeds. I'm offended by the idea that you would discriminate against such a lowly and unpretentious food item. You like the idea of poppy seeds. You like the idea of an herb that comes in discrete units called seeds so that you don't have to wonder about how much a sprig is. It's something that you can picture, as opposed to cumin that you wouldn't recognize even if it sat on your tongue, or rosemary, which you probably forgot was a spice and which you couldn't tell from thyme. When you see me disposing of poppy seeds, it pains you because it's something you can conceptualize. If I told you that I hate cumin and you had to flush a bunch of it down the sink, would you be bothered by that? Probably not. So really, it is not who I am discriminating against the poppy seed, it is you who is discriminating against non-poppy seed spices. You have? Oh, maybe. I mean, if it's in something I've eaten, probably, but like, I have not consumed it knowingly. There's no reason for us to have poppy seeds anywhere in this cafe. People claim they want them, but you can go years without ever serving up a single poppy seed and no one will notice its absence. A woman wearing a loose green sweater walked up to the counter. Were you just talking about poppy seeds? Yes. We're all out. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping you might have a... Don't say muffin, thought Mary to herself. Don't say anything about poppy seed muffins. A poppy seed muffin. My grandmother was really fond of them. Che grinned as Maddie tried to avoid cringing. The woman in the green sweater said, they used to be part of the standard muffin trifecta, chocolate, blueberry, poppy seed. I always wonder why cafes stopped serving poppy seed muffins. I wonder, said Maddie aloud. It's been so long since I've tasted one. Years, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's been years. It was a dangerous thing. Yeah, that it is. That it is. How do I... Wait, where's the exit? This way. I mean, I barely know my spices in German. I know my spices even less in English, so I have no clue what they were talking about. Poppy seed. Oh! Okay, never mind. Then I have eaten a bunch of them. I see. I love them. Ah, you know poppy seed bread rolls? I love those. I see. Yes, and I've eaten a bunch of them. My my driving license teacher, whatever you might call them, instructor, once worked part-time in a bakery, and one day she worked with so much of them, she got into you know, when the police stop you to test you just because, and then she had to come in to the station because she had worked with so much of it that day. That the fucking test was like, oh, excuse me, are you driving under influence? And she was like, no. I work in a fucking bakery. Go for some poppy seeds right now, man. Same. Now that I know what they are. Yeah. I've been thinking, said Kishan. Uh-oh. About the people that I've left behind. I'm not going to see any of them again. One of them could be about to walk through that door. Don't taunt me of possibilities. You brought it up. Yeah, well, he slumped over in a funk. Death has a real finality to it, you know. Yeah, it does. That's death. The travel from life to death is a very one-way street for all but a few individuals, and if you're standing here, then it's a bit late for chest paddles. I guess I'm thinking more about the fact that I'm not going to see any of my old friends again. Not as long as they're alive, anyway. That does tend to be how death works. I hope you're not surprised. Not surprised. But also, I wouldn't have been surprised if that wasn't the case, you know? Like, I'm pretty sure on at least one occasion I've threatened people by saying I will haunt you. And now that's never going to happen. Pity. You could have been someone's grudge ghost film. Guess that one's confined to the annals of Japanese horror cinema. Hey, I was wondering, do you think there's any way for me to see what's going on at my funeral? Don't. Alright. I just thought, you know, it's kind of everyone's fantasy, right? To see what people have to say about them after they've passed. When you want to see what's going on at your own funeral, I think it's none of your business what goes on at your funeral. Really. I mean, I think it's pretty common for people to plan their own funerals, at least if they go late enough that they can see it coming. You know, I'd like to have my brother deliver a eulogy. Don't let them play any Barry Manilow songs, that sort of thing. Maddie blinked. Do you have a problem with Barry Manilow? No, I have no particular opinion on the man or his music. But a lot of people who are old enough to be planning their own funeral do. You can make your plans, but whatever unfolds at the funeral is up to those who attended. Kishan blinked. What about the wishes of the dead? I thought you'd have a bit more sympathy for their interest considering how often you interact with them. I care plenty about the dead. You asking about funerals. Funerals are for the living, my friend. Kishan opened his mouth to respond but cut himself short. I never thought about it that way. I'm not sure what to say. If you're short on words but high on energy, you can expend some of that energy by carrying this box upstairs, said Maddie, gently kicking a large cardboard box that was resting underneath the counter. There's an alcove next to the bookshelf that would make a good home for this box. Kishan picked up the box, grateful for something to do with his hands. It was heavy enough that he had to make sure to lift with his legs and not with his back, but not so heavy that he fell out of breath by the time that he reached the top of the stairs. His breathing was heavy but not labored. It was a good feeling. Kishan set the box down at the spot Maddie had designated and sat down for a moment, waiting for his heart rate to return to normal. It felt good to feel his heart beating inside of his chest. This is how it feels to be alive, he thought to himself. Damn, I'm going to miss it. Aww, well, I mean, you won't die in a while. I mean, we finished the game. You won't die in a while, so you're good. Whoa, this one is a little longer. Okay. Maddie studied the gentleman at the counter as he raised his glass appraisingly. Her eyes narrowed on the drink in his hand as he took a sip. There was something in the way the man carried himself that irritated Maddie. She was irritated, not mad. Nothing he had done was rude or otherwise improper. If anything, the thing that bothered her was the fact that he seemed too proper. The way his hand rested on the counter felt very deliberate. There was nothing lazy about the way he sat, perfectly upright, or what he did with his hands, one on the glass, the other resting deliberately on the brim of the top he had placed on the counter when he walked in. No, he said, I'm afraid that's not it. He set the glass down. Was that better or worse than the previous one? Closer, I think. But it's hard to tell. You just know it when he takes it, you know? Yeah, I know. She picked up the whiskey bottle and began pouring another drink, this time 7 parts whiskey to 4 parts water. She was using the glasses that she discreetly marked with measuring points, and she was confident she was pouring to within a centiliter of precision. She slid the glass over to him. Try this one. That's still not it. It's a fine drink, though. I'll gladly finish it. Let me try one more time. I assure you this is a fine drink. What I experienced in London was, I'm sure, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It would be completely unreasonable for me to expect you to replicate it here. A good enough drink is perfectly good enough. Something in the way he said good enough made her even less willing to give up the fight. She grabbed the whiskey bottle and was about to begin pouring again when she felt a tap on her shoulder. Shay, can I have a word with you? Shoot. In back. Maddie followed Shay into the kitchen. You've got to stop trying to make the perfect water mix. You're not cracking some code here. What that guy considers the perfect whiskey is not going to be some perfect formula that will work for everyone from here until the end of eternity. Different people have different tastes. I'm aware of that, so why won't you give it up? Because I want to give him the perfect drink. He already got the perfect drink in London 20 years ago, and every day that passes just makes the memory of that drink more and more unrealistically impressive.
Hello! Good evening!
I know. That's why I have to make the perfect drink. I don't understand. Jay, the perfect drink in London 20 years ago? The one that he still remembers to this day as the best drink of his life? People are supposed to have memories like that about this place. This is where it's all supposed to come together. And that's why you can't back down. I can back down, but I find it very hard to forgive myself if I do. Can I tell you a story? Is the story going to suck? You won't know until I tell it. Sounds like a good reason not to tell it then, said Maddie, crossing her arms. I used to be a logger. You worked with lumber? You never told me. I did tell you that I worked a lot of odd jobs, and I figured that alone would be enough to communicate that I'm full of anecdotes about a large variety of subjects even after you've known me for many, many years. I've lived a lot longer than I've known you, so it's not like I could convey everything I've ever experienced in the time I've known you. Au contraire, conversation allows you to compress experiences. You could compress an entire day into an answer to the question, so what did you do today? You're right, but I don't like reducing big experiences to short, pithy statements about what I've done. I already feel dirty about just saying I used to be a logger, because there's so much more to that experience than a job title. And I'd like to tell you more about being a logger if you'll let me. Alright, tell me about being a logger. I was a logger for 2 weeks back in... Wait, 2 weeks? You were a logger for 2 weeks? It sounds to me like you were a non-logger who engaged in logging activity for 2 weeks. Logger is a title. You have to earn that shit. Alright. Point is, I learned a thing or two about logging. A thing or two and probably not much else if it was only 2 weeks. You're right. Luckily, I only need to tell you one thing. Oh boy. I can hardly wait. What's the one worthwhile thing you learned about logging during those 2 weeks? When you're cutting away the tree, you actually have to cut away a lot of wood in order to weaken it enough to fell it. That is, you're not merely cutting a gap in the tree, you're actually removing part of the tree to weaken it. Yeah, I kind of figured. That's why partially cut trees have a notch in them. The logger just has to keep making the notch bigger until the tree collapses. Was that your lesson? You're not acting like yourself. On the contrary, I'm behaving exactly like myself, and that seems to bother you. Shay grimaced. You're right. Can we still play at being teacher and student? Maddie sighed and put her back against the wall, looking down. Yeah. Alright. He did his best to grin. Maddie gestured for him to go on. You were saying about cutting trees? Ah, right. You need to create a notch, but to create the notch, you're removing part of the tree. You're taking a chip out of it. Uh-huh. It's really easy to get caught up in that when it's happening. When chips are flying everywhere, the last thing you want to focus on is that big tree that's just standing still. You see a chip flying off somewhere and your eyes, and more importantly, your attention naturally wants to follow it to see where it lands. And that's when you start to miss with your swings. The secret to logging is that you can't pay too much attention to the chips. Some of the chips are going to land at your feet, and some of them are going to fly off and harmlessly hit you in the chest, and others are going to disappear from your field of view. But you just have to focus on the tree. Focus on the impact you're making, not the trees. That's the secret for it. You need to focus on a big goal. Thank you for sharing the secret of logging with me. Though it can't be too well kept a secret if it's knowledge shared by people with only 2 weeks of experience. So is that it? That's it. That's a story about how you just have to let the chips fall where they may. Thanks for the bit of folksy wisdom. I'm saving the pretentious wisdom for another day. Very thin line between folksy and pretentious when you're acting like a genius for having discovered the etymology of common idioms. That reminds me of a story about wire walking. I'm glad. Maybe I'll even hear that story someday. She stepped out of the kitchen before Che could continue. Mary returned to the counter. How's our whiskey? Best thing to happen to me all day, said the gentleman. You could say that this glass of whiskey is the thing that made my day. Thanks. That's all I needed to hear. I see.
I guess. Next one.
Ashley's original ideas do not steal. Kitchen assistant. According to Maddie, the best way to chop hard ingredients like carrots or celery is to place the thing you're chopping near the point where the tip of the knife touches the board, since this gives you more leverage.
Hello! Thank you so much for the raid.
Are you done? Are you done with Mario now?
Raid time. Woo! Evo!
Nice. Good job. Only took you, well, a little less than an hour. That's good. I looked it up, and this is called a class 2 lever, which gives you way more torque when cutting hard things. The mechanical advantage you get from a class 2 lever can be increased by making the knife longer. That gave me the idea to make a knife that was 1 meter long. That's not a knife anymore. I think at that point it should be classified as something more akin to a sword. That will provide a much greater mechanical advantage than the knives Maddie uses, which are only 10 centimeters or 18 centimeters long. Maddie says that I'm not allowed to use any knives that are longer than 18 centimeters and said something about a weed katana, so that idea is a dead end. I didn't know what she meant by that, so I looked it up online and found some videos of guys using really long blades to cut things like water bottles. Apparently the key to cutting is force and speed. Since Maddie doesn't want any blades longer than 18 centimeters, that means getting more force from leverages out. But I could compensate for this by just making the blades really fast. I created kitchen assistant versions 1 that uses a shorter knife, but it's affixed to a wheel that turns at 290 RPM even with the blade attached. The first time I turned it on, the blade wasn't completely secured and it flew off and embedded in the ceiling. Ha! Great! To make sure this wouldn't happen again, for version 2, I welded the blade to the flywheel so that it won't come off. I think Maddie will be really pleased with the result, because I only had to use a 10 centimeter blade, which is much smaller than the original blade size that she had a problem with. Also, when choosing which knife to weld onto the flywheel, I picked a knife that Maddie says is the best one. I think a personal bias will cause her to like my invention more because I built it using her favorite knife. Well, knife retriever. Kitchen Assistant version 2 was a big success, but my testing of Kitchen Assistant version 1 left the knife embedded in the ceiling, and I wasn't able to reach the knife by climbing on top of my stepladder. Stepladder! I could probably reach it if I placed my stepladder on the countertop, but Maddie says that's dangerous, so I wanted to find a way to retrieve the knife without breaking that rule. I was thinking of making a giant magnet, but electromagnets require a lot of power, and the last time I tried to draw a lot of power from the outlet, it tripped the circuit breakers. And if you try taping the circuit breakers in place so that they don't trip, things catch on fire and it's a lot harder to fix, especially since hiding that kind of thing from Maddie requires so much effort. Keeping a smell of smoke covered while replacing a breaker box is like doing 2 jobs at once, and that's 2 jobs more than I want to do on a Saturday afternoon. So a magnet is probably out, especially because I'm not sure if the knife is made out of ferromagnetic material. I don't know what Maddie's knives are made of, but if they're made out of aluminium, the magnet won't work. I might have to try the electromagnet thing if I can't think of a plan before Maddie notices. She probably wouldn't like it. The good news is that the knife is firmly embedded in the wood, and the compressive force on the knife is enough to prevent it from falling down due to gravity, unless a loud vibration causes it to fall down, so there's a very low probability of the knife falling down and hurting someone. The only thing that could disturb this is if it got humid and the wood around the knife started to warp, and the weather forecast said we're not getting any rain for the next few days, so I should have plenty of time to get the knife down before it's at risk of falling. Just as long as Maddie doesn't look up when she's standing behind that part of the counter, everything will be fine. Visibility reducer. She could also just tell someone, hey, sorry, I accidentally got a knife stuck in the ceiling, can you get it down for me? But no, why would she do that, right? To prevent Maddie from looking up and seeing the knife on the ceiling, I created a device to dissuade her from looking up. If you put a really bright halogen lamp somewhere, it really makes people not want to look in that direction. So I figured that if the knife had a halogen lamp next to it, anytime Maddie thought of looking up at the ceiling, she would decide, no, I don't want to look up there because there's a bright halogen lamp that will probably blind me. I'll look down at the counter instead. Or maybe she will look up at the light and then she'll be so disoriented by how bright it is that she won't see the knife on the ceiling. The LED on my headlamp only goes up to 50 lumens, and it takes 500 lumens to disorient disorient a person. The problem was that I couldn't figure out how to affix the halogen lamp to the ceiling. That was the same problem I had with retrieving the knife. It's too high up. Then I realized a simple solution. I could get the halogen lamps up to the ceiling the same way I got the knife up there by having the kitchen assistant version 1 throw them. The halogen lamp aren't sharp enough to embed themselves in the wood, so I had to apply a layer of fast-drying adhesive covered by another layer of wood glue. I figured the fast-drying adhesive will hold them there long enough for the wood glue to dry, and that will keep them from falling until I can figure out a way to get the knife down. My first attempt to use the kitchen assistant version 1 to throw the halogen lamp at the ceiling did not go so well, since I let go at the wrong time and instead flung the lamp to the wall. It took me almost 5 minutes to clean up all of the big pieces. There were a lot of pieces that I didn't have time to pick up, but they were small, so Maddie probably won't notice them, and if Chai notices them, he probably cleaned them up without saying anything. The second attempt, I got the kitchen assistant version 1 to throw at the ceiling, but its velocity was too high, and when the bulb hit the ceiling, it shattered instead of sticking. I tried lowering the RPM of the kitchen assistant version 2, but after my 5th attempt, I realized I was out of halogen bulbs. I wonder if I can recycle the broken pieces for anything. Lamp bulbs seem like they would be very hard to reconstruct. All this instead of just asking someone, hey, can you get that knife from the ceiling? Why? Ashley, why? Ashley's original ideas do not steal. Floor sweeper. My last experiment with the kitchen assistants version 1 was a big success if you measure success and how quickly he was able to pulverize things generally. The throwing objects at the ceiling technique does not work for pulverizing carrots or celery for salads, but it is very good at pulverizing halogen lamp bulbs. This made me think about how much better it would be if the floor was self-cleaning. Ashlings can sweep up a bit, but usually all they do is move dust around, and it's hard to get them to actually collect debris and put it into the trash. If the entire floor were covered with the air jets, and any small bits of debris that dropped onto the floor would get quickly whisked away toward a corner, where a vacuum or something could suck them up into a disposal chute. Having a bunch of air jets would require a lot of power to run, but air isn't the only fluid that could be used to carry dirt and dust and broken shards of halogen lamp bulbs. Water could also probably do the trick. The issue is that water would damage the floor. Ripping up the wooden floorboards and pouring concrete would solve the problem, and we could mold the concrete in a way that shape directed the water toward a drain in the floor. That would mean no more need to sweep. We could just hose down the entire cafe at the end of the day and it would drain itself. Then it would be dry by morning. That's actually a really good idea that doesn't require any special equipment or specialized hardware once the floor is installed. I should copyright that idea to make sure that nobody steals it. Update. After several days of calling the Australian Copyright Council, I finally talked to a person who told me that what I want to cover in inventions is a patent and not a copyright. After several more days of trying to contact the patent office, I was told that someone already used my idea. I wonder if it's possible to sue someone for stealing your idea before you came up with it. It's pretty unfair that I'm not able to patent an idea just because I'm too young to have had the idea before someone else claimed it. Knife Retriever version 2. Previously, I discarded the idea of using a large electromagnet to retrieve the knife that was locked in the ceiling. My research has led me to believe that the knife in the ceiling is actually stainless steel, which contains iron. Iron is ferromagnetic, which is weird because you'd think that only ferro would be ferromagnetic, but I guess iron is too. Also, I was able to find a gas-powered generator that could supply enough power to run an electromagnet for a short period of time, so I don't need to worry about the circuit breakers. It requires a lot of gas, but luckily getting the knife down only requires running the electromagnet for a short period of time. I created the electromagnet by spooling a power cable around a piece of iron. The good news is that the electromagnet is great at pulling knives from where they are. The bad news is that it pulled all of the knives from the drawers that were within a meter of it when it turned on. Also, the knife in the ceiling wasn't affected because it was too far away. I looked it up and magnetic attraction follows an inverse cube law. I'm not sure what the opposite of a cube is, maybe it's a sphere, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense that objects further away aren't pulled as strongly by a magnet. The Besieger 5000! After my lack of success with the Knife Retriever version 2, I asked Shay for help and he lifted me up so I was able to pull the knife from the ceiling. He asked how long it had been up there and I said not long, and he said more than a day, and I said oh, it wasn't up for a day, which is technically true. I'm glad that asking Shay for help succeeded, but I think in the future there needs to be a way to automate this process instead of asking Shay for help. I think I need to create a robot with speech capability that is capable of asking for favors. Then I could have the robot ask for favors on my behalf. I think this is a good idea because usually when you ask someone for a favor, then you owe them a favor afterward. But if it were the robot asking for the favor, then the robot would owe the favor, not you. Then the person would ask the robot to do them a favor and the robot would say, sorry, I'm only capable of talking to people, not doing tasks. Then if the person asked the robot to ask you for a favor, the robot would say, I'm sorry, my battery is running low, and then it would self-destruct. It would be expensive to build a new robot every time you had to ask for another favor, but it would be better than having to owe someone a bunch of favors after they helped you. Are you sure? Are you sure? I'm not sure it would be. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, there sure are a few more long ones in there. Come on, I want to show you something. For a moment, Tuan thought of grabbing Hannah by the hand to lead her, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Something about the idea of holding her hand seemed simultaneously too childish and too intimate for him to try this early in the night. Oh, where are you taking me? Said Hannah. Someplace cool. He located a ladder leading down from the lower level and gestured to it. After you. And now you ask me to be the first one to jump into the gaping maw of whatever monsters might be lurking down there. Hannah shook her head ruefully. Where have all the gentlemen gone? Twin smirked. I think a gentleman might say ladies first, and I think a lady might say I'll stand quietly behind while you deal with the street ruffian. Go ahead, bear first, face first into danger, I'll follow behind. Well, technically I'm going feet first, you know, going down, verticality and all that. Mahat is actually the last part of me that will be arriving on the lower level. Not if she's going to push you down for that exact sentence. I would consider doing that. Are we going to keep standing here bantering, or are you going to show me whatever's down there? You seemed enthused by the idea only a few moments ago. I guess I just got distracted by your cattiness. Hannah got on the ladder on top of Tuan. Don't look up. Trust me, you won't get the show you're expecting if you do. Fine. Tuan descended the ladder, keeping his gaze decidedly horizontal. After arriving on the level below, he studied his feet until Hannah landed beside him. Hannah joined him in studying his feet. Oh, please don't tell me you're one of those freaks who's obsessed with his sneakers. Nah, just the kind who finds the sight of his own shoelaces a safe distraction from whatever he's trying to avoid looking at. Oh, good. Did you hear about the brawl in Darwin? No. Well, it was actually Darwin, California. You know, these international news sites always trying to sucker me into reading stories about what's happening in America. Anyway, nobody was hospitalized, but several kids walked away from that store with black eyes to show to their friends. I can understand that collectibles are a big deal, but come on! We live in a society! We sure do! I don't think I'll ever understand sneakerheads. Wait, that's actually a thing? Yeah. You didn't know about it? It's really big with hip youngsters. I guess I don't pay very close attention to the behavior of hip youngsters. Well, that was evident from the moment I laid eyes on you. But you seem adventurous enough. Maybe one day you encounter one of them. On that note, what are we here to see? Tuan led Hannah to one of the portholes of the room they were in. Look at this. Whoa, that is indeed a porthole. No, I mean what's on the other side. Yep, that certainly is water on the other side of a porthole. Hold on. It's supposed to be a what? I don't want to spoil the surprise. Well, you have effectively replaced my awe and wonder of seeing the sea through a porthole in the basement of a Melbourne cafe with a feeling of disappointment that I'm not seeing whatever it is I'm supposed to be seeing. Tuan checked several of the other portholes. This is weird. It's usually... The sound of something landing behind them caused Tuan and Hannah to spin around and face the ladder they just climbed down. A girl with twin tails stood up from a crouching stance and dusted herself off. Did you just jump down? Yep. It's only 10 meters. And to think that we wasted our time climbing down that ladder like schmucks. So, Tuan stood gawking at the girl for a few moments. Sorry, I don't remember your name. I'm Ashley. I guess turnabout is fair play because I don't remember your name either. It's Tuan. And I'm Hannah. You two know each other? Hannah said to Tuan as she pointed at Ashley. Yes. We know each other so well that we greet each other by asking each other what our names are. It's a great greeting ritual. We should try to popularize it. You know, normalize introducing yourself by name even to people you met before. I bet it would save some people from a lot of awkwardness. Not everyone is good with names, you know. That's a great idea. I'm going to start doing that. Hannah shot a glance at Tuan and he grinned. So what are you doing down here? Here to kick us out? Is this a no patron zone? No, it's no problem. But I was eavesdropping. Tuan's eyes widened and he looked at Hannah, but Hannah seemed to be more amused than upset at Ashley's appearance. And it sounded like you weren't seeing what you wanted to be seeing, so I thought I'd come down and take you lower. Oh? Where am I being taken now? About 1,000 fathoms is where things start to get interesting. How much is 1,000 fathoms? It's about 1,800 meters. Sounds like a lot of climbing. Guess I should have bought better ladder climbing shoes. That sounds like the lament of a non-sneakerhead. Oh, no need to climb. Just hang on a sec. Ashley walked up to a panel with several mechanical levers, and after several moments, the water outside the portal began changing hue. What was that? Swordfish. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was a sailfish. I'm pretty sure you made that up. No, really. They are marlin, and they have a long bill like a swordfish, but they also have a broad, erect dorsal fin. If you had left the word erect after the sentence, I might have believed you. No, he's probably right. I've seen him down here with marine biology books. He's a huge nerd, so I definitely trust his word over mine. Well, I'm glad that's settled. The part about you being a nerd, I mean. I think the sailfish with an erect dorsal fin still sounds kind of sketchy to me. Eventually, the room stopped descending and Hannah looked outside the porthole. Now I see what you were excited about. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. Hey, nerd boy, what's this one called? John tried to follow Hannah's pointing finger. Which one are you pointing at? That shark-looking thing. It looks like it's as big as a whale. Oh, that's a whale shark. See, I knew you were just making up names. No, he's not. A whale shark is a thing that exists. God damn it, Hannah. No, that one's right. That's one of the few ones I know because it's so easy to remember. It's a cross between a whale and a shark. Whale shark. So, this is the level of the ocean where interspecies romance happens. There isn't actually any whale DNA in a whale shark. It just has a name because of its size. It's the largest known species of fish. Hannah shook her head. First it's a whale shark, then it's just a shark, and now it's a fish. And the thing you need to know about making stuff up is that you need to stick to one version of the story. Sharks are fish. You didn't know that? They have gills. I'm kind of surprised you didn't know. I don't think you're the one who should be surprised by any of this, said Hannah. Everything that you've shown me down here is thoroughly weird. Me not knowing that sharks are fish, that seems very normal to me. Hey Ashley, did you know that sharks are fish? Nope. This is my first time hearing it too. Must be another made-up two-in fact about marine biology. John shrugged his shoulders. I guess so. The truth is that I'm just really creative and good at making up so-called facts. The part about me being a nerd who spends all his time studying marine biology must be a lie. No, I still believe that part. Me too. The trio stood for a few moments, wavering between looking out the porthole and looking at each other. The awkwardness hit just a few seconds before Ashley spoke up. Anyway, I figured this is where you wanted to hang out, so here you go, 2,000 fathoms. Give me a holler if you want to go deeper. Ashley walked to the ladder and disappeared through the hole in the ceiling. What? Huh? Okay. I guess? Okay. That is just what they do. They're just chilling. Fate of Icarus. The first thing Che noticed when he entered Ashley's workshop was that her workbench was not in its usual place. It had been pushed up against the wall. The second thing he noticed was that Ashley was sitting on a bench, her back slumped against the wall, evidently still feeling the effects of a caffeine crash. Hey! But her eyes didn't move up to meet his. That wasn't like Ashley. She usually greeted people with her eyes before greeting them with her voice. Hey kiddo, you doing okay? I'm okay. I'm feeling tired and achy and yet somehow unable to rest is okay. My mind is still amped up, but unable to do anything productive. Why do I feel like this, Che? Is this my life now? Am I going to be okay? Che stepped up to Ashley's workbench and seated himself next to her. I tell you to relax, but it sounds like you're already trying and fading. So, maybe it's okay to be amped up and also tired? It's kind of the worst. To be tired, but also incapable of resting. Oh yeah, that is honestly one of the worst feelings out there. You're just like, I want to sleep. I want to rest. But it's just not working. You cannot fall asleep. You just sit or lie there. But you also can't do anything. You just feel like wasting time. Che smiled. Tired but also incapable of resting described how he felt on most days. It had become such a familiar part of his condition that he forgot what it was like to be young, so to have the kind of energy that Ashley always seemed to be brimming with. I think you have to get used to that, kiddo. I think you're just getting an early taste of what being an adult is like. That's not reassuring at all. You feel like this every day? If you came here to comfort me, you're doing a terrible job. Che frowned. He always considered himself a good teacher, but he'd come to learn that mentoring someone required skills beyond simply teaching them a skill. When it came to comforting people in times of crisis, he always seemed to manage to find the right words. On day-to-day matters, however, well, I think I spend a lot of days feeling how you feel right now, but luckily this will pass for you. And look at it this way. You've learned something today, didn't you? Yes. Maddie's in possession of powerful potions that can yield devastating effects, and she disguises them under innocent-sounding names like espresso. Che nodded, more not prompting her to continue than to display approval. But also you have a terrible bedside manner. Well, but you weren't forced to drink the coffee, were you? No, I did that to myself. Is that what you wanted me to say? You're right, Che. I tried something new for the first time and now I get to spend the rest of my life regretting it. Try a few hours. I'm pretty sure the regret will wear off as soon as you recover from this caffeine crash. After that, hopefully it will be codified in a part of your brain that hesitates just a little bit when you're tempted to ask for a third or fourth espresso shot. Ashley continued looking straight ahead. Point remains, trying new things can be hazardous to your health. Actions have consequences, and the consequences can feel real bad. She opened her mouth and made a noise that was halfway between a gasp and a yawn, like someone who had too much carbon dioxide in their bloodstream and didn't know how to correct the problem without making a face that resembled a fish. Thanks for the lesson, Che. I'm never going to try ingesting anything new ever again. Che frowned again and tried his best to correct back to something that resembled a useful lesson. That's nice and all, but I don't think that avoiding new and novel drinks is going to protect you from ever encountering harm again. Right, which is why I'm not limiting it to drinks. No new foods, I've got a decent enough palate anyway. I think I'm good sticking to the same dozen or so meals for the rest of my life. Che looked at Ashley and hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure what words of wisdom he could impart to the girl, but he was pretty sure that words weren't the only way to get someone out of a slump. Ashley, stand up. He stood up himself for fear of looking unwilling to follow his own advice. Why? Because you can. I can't. All the more reason to stand up. You just stand up to prove that you can. And if you can't, well, that's good to know too. Ashley groaned and twisted so that she was lying down on the workbench. Che was about to object, but then she started rolling off the workbench and plopped onto the floor. Ouch. Che watched Ashley, not reaching down to offer her hand. If she was capable of saying ouch, she was capable of asking for help if she needed it. Several painful moments later, Ashley lifted herself off the floor and shuffled backward until she was leaning against the wall next to a workbench. See? You thought you couldn't stand, but you can. Hooray for me, I'm overjoyed, she said in a tone that was clearly far from overjoyed. You can sit down if you'd like to, said Che, sensing that standing was actually a non-trivial feat for Ashley at this moment. She hopped back onto the workbench, but this time sat perched at the edge, with her legs hanging over the edge rather than slumped back with her back against the wall like she had been when he had first walked in. That was a good sign. I don't want one bad experience to kill your sense of adventure. Look at where my sense of adventure's got me, Che. I flew too close to the sun, and now that I'm on the surface of the sun, the lights are all bright, and I feel hot and tingly all over, and I feel tired like it's summer all the time, and I really don't like it. I'm just like Icarus. That's not how the story of Icarus goes, though, isn't it? Icarus didn't fly to the sun. His journey was limited to our atmosphere. He just got too close to the sun and his wings melted. Ashley raised an eyebrow. Oh, is that what happened? Now, the part at the beginning of the story where his dad tells him not to fly too close to the sun or his wings will melt makes a lot more sense. Classic foreshadowing. You're forgetting a part of the story, though. Icarus' father told him not to fly too high or the sun would melt his wings, but he also said not to fly too low when crossing the sea or his wings would get wet and he would sink and drown. Wow, so Icarus flying high was actually brilliant. His wings melted, but he managed to avoid drowning. Ashley's voice was still monotone, but she was leaning forward. Well, no. He still drowned because after his wings melted, he crashed into the sea. Ashley gave a nod of acknowledgement. Same results, so the moral of the story is that you're doomed no matter what you do. No! He drowned, but before he drowned, he saw it. Story still ends with the drowning. Every story ends with death in some way, Ashley. The question is whether you will die or not. Isn't whether you will die or not. The question is before you die. Will you take the opportunity to see just how high you can fly? That's actually really nice. That's actually really nice. You die anyway. So make the best of it until then, I guess. Samantha sat alone at the bar, taking occasional sips from a glass of gin. She wasn't sure that tonight was a night she really wanted to be drinking, but the comforting familiarity of the gin kept her raising a glass to her lips. The drink didn't set well in her stomach, but each sip left her feeling warm, and with each sip the knot in her stomach seemed to become less and less noticeable, and so she kept drinking. The green bottle had become something of a friend over the years, and with it she shared the kind of friendship born not out of any sort of affection so much as one of familiarity and convenience. Drinking the Tanqueray need took her back to the first apartment she lived in after moving from her hometown in New Mexico to the parts of Melbourne that bordered the docks, the same apartment where she discovered that liquor was vastly cheaper when bought by the bottle than when bought by the glass in the setting of a bar, in which she'd learned that the cinnamon and coriander gave the gin enough flavor without the need for mixers. The Tanqueray was her coming-of-age drink, and consequently she enjoyed a private relationship with it. Most of the alcohol she'd consumed in the past year had been on a job, but gin was something that she kept hidden away at home for the private moments when it was only her, a green bottle, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Samantha emptied the glass and for a moment continued to hold the empty glass up to her mouth, looking down her nose at the bottom of the glass as if asking God for a sign that this was the time to stop drinking. She had no intention of stopping, but she figured it was worth giving the everlasting a chance to interdict if she was transgressing by drinking so heavily. No divine intervention came to stop her from raising her hand to signal Maddie for another drink. There was a small throbbing inside her ears that seemed to think it was a bad idea, but she was sure that was the result of hearing damage and not the voice of God ringing in her ears. She was fairly sure that she didn't believe in God, but something about her Catholic upbringing kept her occasionally checking in just to confirm that her suspicions that there wasn't anyone upstairs judging her on her hedonism. Still, if there was any time or place to question her lack of belief in God, a cafe that seemed to exist in a borderlands between life and death seemed as good a place as any to do it. Her mother had told her that it was only by the grace of God that she walked the earth, and if it wasn't a force of God that kept this cafe's doors open, it was certainly something otherworldly. I see. Let's be fucking blasphemous tonight, I guess. I mean, I'm blasphemous any day of the week. But still. There we go. This is the last one. She came down the stairs and noticed that Kishan was still seated at the counter staring into a glass of sun. Wait. We read that one. We accidentally read that one already. That was about the bottle that always has exactly what you need in it. That I accidentally read already. That means we have read all of them! Which means we can look at more art. Hee hee hee! I love all of this art. 2016, huh? Game has been out for a while. Ooh. Holistic character design. I can't read that.
Pizza time. Oh.
Interesting.
Our boy. Our other boy.
Style ideation, young man. Okay. Neutral can be serious mode. Neutral. Those are some different glasses than what she got in the end. Perfectionist.
Ooh, look at that.
That's some cute art. Slight curve allowed for hand stretching. Curvature looks more organic. Ho ho! Oh really? Look at him! He's your boy!
Amoka's boy.
Oh god, okay. Those look a little cursed. Just a little. Amoka's! Look at the one on the lower left. You can't see my Magnons were ripping off his visor. Yeah! You can't see my cursor, but look at the one in the lower left! Amoka's.
Amoka's.
Ah.
Faces, 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 younger faces.
Lots of art. Very nice. I can't read all of that. Wilted flowers. Black what? Keep in realm of reality. They looked a little different at some point. Ah, look at that. They look... I see. Yeah, they look a little...
Big boy.
The haste. Who are these people? The haste? What kind of haste? That's it.
That is it.
Well, no, it is not it for the game, because actually there's a free-to-play DLC out after you finish the main game, the Walking to the Sky. I don't know how long that is or what it's about, but hey, I say we're going to check that out now. It apparently features Hana and Tuan or something. Hello. He's sitting. Tuan bent down to face the robot, which seemed to alternate between retreating and approaching him. It appeared wary at first before it began skittering about like a little critter wanting to play. Fetch. Maybe you have an easier time with this. Bonk. The thrown hex nut bounced away to some unseen corner, and Tuan began looking for another loose object to throw. He ran his hand along the shelf and found a weird washer shaped more like a thin cylinder than a typical washer. Catch! Oh, good job! Tom was a bit disappointed to see the bot go. The bot did seem like a social animal that was probably interested in seeing what other people in the cafe might be willing to play with it, so he didn't take its departure personally. Hey! As if to answer his plea for distraction, a girl appeared at the top of the stairs. Hey! She spoke in a manner that acknowledged Tuan's presence, but was uncertain of what else to say. She quickly broke eye contact, and her eyes started scanning the floor as if she was looking for something. Tuan, feeling awkward and unsure if he should say anything to the girl, turned to the shelf and looked at the books furthest away from her. Clearly the girl had come upstairs looking for something, though it seemed that something wasn't a conversation with Tuan. For a moment he found himself imagining what it would be like to have an excuse to talk to her. He just wanted a chance to get to know her better. But of course he had to be realistic. He didn't have the initiative to approach a girl like her, nor was he sure of what else to talk about. She was too determined, too focused on whatever she was looking for, to tolerate being distracted by conversation with a stranger. Everything about her appearance, from the way she was dressed to the way she moved, implied that she had come here deliberately. While she excluded a clear sense of purpose, she seemed hesitant to greet him. Is this before or after they meet each other in the main story? Or we see them together in the main story, because I'm confused right now. Hi. Hey. Yeah? I was just wondering, did you happen to see a ring here? A ring? Like a... Oh, like a ring. Yeah, I think I took it off and left it here somewhere. No, I don't think I remember seeing a ring that looked like that. Tuan realized the girl hadn't actually described the ring to him, apart from telling him it was the sort of one might wear on a finger. Are you sure? It was just a metal band. No rock or etchings or anything. A metal band? Not like a Metallica kind of metal band, but you know, like a piece of jewelry. Tuan suppressed an urge to get into a well-actually argument about heavy rock versus metal and which side of the divide Metallica fell on. Do not attempt to have that conversation. Please, I'm begging you, dude. You mean just a metal ring? Yes, I'm looking for a metal ring that looks like a metal ring. Something that sort of looks like a washer, but with the sides curled inward? Yeah, something like that. Tuan felt the color drain from his face as he recalled the washer that he had thrown to board just minutes earlier. Yeah, I think I saw something like that. There was a little bot around here playing with some small metal objects. I think one of them was the ring you're looking for. Oh, great, is it? Oh, you don't need to... It's no problem. I mean, it's probably easier for me to look around where I saw it than try to describe it to you. I could swear it was just around here. Tuan recalled that the bot had run away with one of the items he had thrown earlier. He spotted the hex nut and screw that he had tossed out still lying on the floor, but the ring was nowhere to be seen. Sorry, I think it may have run off with it. Oh, you don't need to apologize. I mean, it's not like it was your fault, right? Yeah, haha. He actually enunciated the syllables haha like a person reading it off the page in a way that sounded nothing like laughter. Well, thanks for checking. Maybe I'll see if I can find our bot. She hesitated, looking around as if she was a bit unsure what to do. Chun scrambled for the right words to say on the spot and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. It's me. What? I'm sorry? I mean, it's me that's going to help you find that ring. Oh, that's really not necessary. It wasn't clear to Tuan whether she was saying that to indicate she didn't want to impose or felt she would be better off without his assistance. He decided to address both points. I've got nothing better to do. And I know this place pretty well. You're new here, right? Let me lend you my limited knowledge of how this cafe is laid out. If it's not too imposing, I'm happy to help. Truth be told, helping this girl locate her missing ring was a bit troublesome, but he felt responsible for creating the situation. I appreciate it. By the way, I don't think I got your name. I'm Tuan. Hey Tuan, I'm probably pronouncing that name absolutely fucking wrong. But I'm Hana.
Nice to meet you, Hana.
I mean, the cafe is not that big. You just have to find one bot. So does this ring of yours have any special significance? Something like a special gift? Sentimental value? He still hadn't gotten around to telling Hana that he was responsible for the loss of her ring. It's kind of a reminder of who I was in my early days. Just a personal effect. It was part of my whole goth phase. I used to have 9 other rings just like that one and wore all of them every day. Now I'm down to a much more tasteful single ring. Goth phase. Oh, wearing those rings was about as far as I got into the goth aesthetic. I don't think my limited makeup budget would ever allow me to go full goth. I guess I was sort of drawn to it during a brief stint where I had an obsession with death. This also coincided with the time in my life when I wrote a lot of really bad poetry. I guess that makes me pretty weird. I don't think it's weird. And besides, it would be pretty hypocritical for me to judge you based on that. I was never goth, but if you've ever been to an emo concert, you might have seen me in the crowd. I appreciate the sentiment, but how do I know that you're a good judge of what's weird and what's not? After all, most normal people don't go to emo concerts. Well, the lion's share of bad poetry is probably written by teenagers, so you're definitely not alone. Speaking from experience, do you have an old life journal of shame I should look at for proof? Don't worry, I'm not actually going to try and find your teenage blogging to try and expose you as a melancholy sad sack who tried to express himself in a medium he has no aptitude for. Cripes, that's a fate I wouldn't wish on anyone. Keep it buried, hidden from the world, never to be discovered. I don't think it's all that bad a thing to have written bad poetry. I guess the whole trying to find beauty in death thing does feel pretty adolescent in the sense that that's when everyone's emotions are turned up to 11. But I think there's more to it than that. It's a time of life where it feels like you're becoming an adult, but you aren't really allowed to have the full experience of being one. You're still experiencing a kid-friendly version of the world. If you live in a sanitized suburb, it feels fake. And in trying to avoid that fakeness, maybe teens run in the opposite direction. They embrace the darkest things they can find and develop a fascination with death. I guess teenagers don't typically confront death directly. Chun tried to keep his voice low as he said the word death. He was becoming increasingly self-conscious about who might be listening to their conversation from beyond the grave. After all, a person's voice could carry pretty far in a place like this. Chun knew enough about the cafe to know that not all of the patrons were living. If a typical teenager has no experience in being around death, I guess that means I'm atypical. You look like someone who wants to ask a question but isn't sure if he's allowed to ask it. That's a big assumption. Am I wrong? I'll take that as a yes. I take that silence as a confirmation that I was correct to take your as a yes. Well, you're not wrong. I hope you're not going to hold that against me. Not at all. It's kind of mutual. You're not sure if you're allowed to ask, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell. You're definitely allowed to tell. I mean, I don't mean to sound overeager when I say that. You're allowed to not tell if you don't want to tell, so you don't have to treat it like a question that needs to be answered. It's not a question, but it sounds like an invitation. Exactly. I'm not following this conversation. When I was 13, my mother was diagnosed with leukemia and my father disappeared as soon as he found out. I spent the next year coping with crippling abandonment issues and a constant feeling of dread and fear of death. Chun saw something in a distant eyes that implied there was more to the story, but for the time being, he was okay with Hana holding parts back. That's heavy. Thank you for sharing it. It was a dark time. Luckily for me, the part of my life is buried deep in my past, never to be seen by the rest of the world. Unless you count the old live journal block that I forgot the password to, so I can never log in and delete it. I think you can actually issue a DSCMA request and the site has to honor it. They'll send a thing to the account and posted it asking them to counterclaim. If the account is abandoned, you can get your stuff scrubbed from the internet. I wasn't looking for a solution to that particular problem, but that actually sounds really useful. I might have to act on the advice. I'm really good at offering unsolicited assistance. For example, one time this girl came to me looking for a missing ring and I told her I'd help her find it. Nice. I hope the story ends with you actually helping her find it instead of getting distracted by some irrelevant thread of a conversation. I don't remember exactly how that story ended, but I think the big turning point might have been when we decided to study the bookshelf. A bookshelf just like the one we're standing in front of. Just like this one, in fact. Oh, wow, why are your faces so... Can we stop now? I mean, I've always been one to appreciate commitment to a bit, but this is getting kind of exhausting. The bookshelf had more than a few nooks and crannies that a bot might hide in. Even if Tuan didn't find the bot that had Hannah's ring, he might ferret out some details that could give a clue to its whereabouts. Are you sure it's okay to move stuff around like that? Try not to sneeze unless you want to see this thing reduced to splinters. Is it really that fragile? Yes, I'm speaking from experience. The shoebox ROG is not a plane known for its tenacity. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught that. What's this thing called? The shoebox ROG is short for Rise of Ground. It's a classic capable of self-sustained indoor flight for up to 14 seconds. Are you an expert of every model that's on these shelves? No, just the balsa wood airplanes. Republic of Gamers! No! When did you become such an expert? Summer camp. It's a subject that's immensely fascinating to 12-year-old boys who then carry that obsession to their grave. And here I'm thinking that it missed out on something important by never going to summer camp. Actually, you kind of did. I'm sure that the physics of a rubber band-powered airplane... No, I mean the other stuff. Clonk! I'm not a big fan of archery or volleyball either. You really think that the reason people carry summer camp memories with them their entire lives is because the curriculum is so well formulated? I guess I always figured that learning how to fish or shoot a bow and arrow was meant to be a delightful experience. Sadly, it's something the rest of us non-summer camp going plebeians were doomed to never enjoy. The bows and arrows are probably the least interesting part of the archery station. The fun part is going to the archery station during your free time and running into a friend and saying, "Hey, I haven't seen you since breakfast." Breakfast is a really important part of the summer camp experience, huh? Well, yeah, it kind of is. And probably the most common one, since everyone eats breakfast at the same time in the same dining hall. Funny, and here I was thinking I was having fun with my friends when all this time we could have enjoyed a much more enriching experience. If only we'd arranged to meet at an archery station. It's that arranged to meet part that causes you to miss out on the magic. Randomly running into someone that you know is a different experience than planning to meet up with someone. There's no replacement for serendipity. And so you bring your friends to summer camp so that you can have these serendipitous encounters with them. No, I didn't know anyone the first time I went. So how did you serendipitously encounter all of these friends? You make friends while you're there. Sounds like hard work, starting from square one. Actually, it's not. The thing about summer camp is that you make friendships with people who you know won't be a part of your life after several weeks. You meet lots of people, spend a short amount of time with them, and then in all likelihood never see them again unless you go to serious lengths to stay in contact. And that's the fun part? Knowing that whatever friends you make, you'll be separated from them? Yeah, in a way. When you only have a short time together, everyone is really all about making the most of the time. Anyway, it doesn't look like it's here either. Good news is there's still lots more ground to cover. That's good news? I prefer it if our search radius were a bit smaller. Well, it would be really bad if we found out we completely searched every place it could be and hadn't found it, right? Plus, if there are any random items lying about here, you'd probably be able to see them right away. No need to dig around. You're the first person I've ever heard who said expiring relationships are a good thing. I think part of me is afraid that the relationships I have are temporary. The opposite thing happens way too often. You see it happen whenever someone moves into your neighborhood. You have those moments where you discover that you have a new neighbor and it's like, oh, we should have them for dinner sometime. Sometime gets defined as next week, and next week becomes next month, and you put it off more and more until eventually you realize that you spent years living next to people that you don't really know because you never spent time with them. You never took the time to really get to know them and form anything resembling an intimate emotional relationship. There was never a sense of urgency. There are people in your life who are just sort of always there, and because you never think about the day they'll leave, you never spend time to enjoy the moments you have together. The best friendships I ever made were the ones that came with an expiration date. You've thought about this a lot. Yeah, I guess I have. Is that why you enjoyed going to emo concerts? A live show seems like a good place to make a friend, spend several hours with them and never see them again. Oh, that is true. Listen, I made friends with people at concerts. Like, we bonded over not being able to see anything because the people in front of us were even taller and stuff. I will never see those people again, but we had the time of our fucking lives that one evening. Concert going was not a regular thing for me. In fact, it was kind of a one-time thing. Music is usually a deeply personal experience for me. I still have the Fall Out Boy album that I would listen to when I was in year 8 every night as I cried into my pillow. Oh boy. The music was that bad, huh? I was brought to tears because the lyrics made me realize the pain and futility of my own existence. A lot of my adolescence was filled with this vague feeling that nothing meant anything. The times I spent listening to that album felt like staring into the abyss and facing that reality directly. Musically, I found the album to be quite enjoyable. Oh, good. Because if you were taking a shot at Fall Out Boy, we might have to trade blows. But that still leaves us with the question of why you kept going back to that album with every single night. It made you realize the pain and futility of your existence. I actually enjoy burying my face in my pillowcase and loudly sobbing as I'm overwhelmed by a creeping feeling of existential angst. I get that some people enjoy a good cry from time to time, but I think you might be the first person I've met who actually embraces existential angst. No, you misunderstand me. I said I enjoy burying my face in my pillowcase and loudly sobbing as I'm overwhelmed by a creeping feeling of existential angst. That's the name of the third track on the album. See, I never listened to full albums, so there's no way for me to tell if you're lying or not. A lie is a false statement intended to deceive. If your intent is just to entertain, then you're not a liar. Thank you for the higher attempt. Just a second. That just makes you a storyteller. Teller! A storyteller! I cannot speak. I have forgotten how to fucking speak. The problem with your fake Fall Out Boy song is that it's not obvious that it is an exaggeration. I mean, that sounds like a kind of song title I'd expect from an emo band. What if I told you my favorite Fall Out Boy song was I'm Like a Lawyer with the way I'm always trying to get you off? I'd assume you were trying to flirt with me because that obviously can't be a real song title. And you assume it's a flirting attempt, why? Well, it's suggestive. If I had to describe it in one word, I'd say it's lewd. And if I told you my favorite Fall Out Boy song was Bang the Doldrums? Crude. I've got a dark alley and a bad idea that says you should shut your mouth? Rude. This ain't a scene, it's an arms race. Feud? Our lawyers made us change the name of the song so we wouldn't get sued. That's a fucking Ace Attorney reference. Well, it's not much of a reference. It is completely obvious. Well, that's all there is to see of the upper level. No ring, no bot, so I'm sorry I couldn't be of more help. Not at all, you helped me eliminate one entire space as a potential zone to search. And besides that, you kept me company. Engaging in a futile task becomes a heck of a lot more enjoyable when you're doing it while having an interesting conversation. Toon felt his chest swelling with a bit of pride over Hannah's insinuation that he was good company. Part of him hoped that a collaborative effort to find a ring, an item so unique that Hannah only had 9 others just like it, wasn't about to come to an end. Do you suppose the little bot you saw might be somewhere down there looking for someone to play with? That's a solid theory. A game theory. You going to come with me or are we done searching for now? I was just thinking that if you're going to check around downstairs for a moving robot, you might be able to get a better fix on it from this vantage point. Plus, I'm not in the mood for more walking. You want to sit down? Nah, sitting's overrated. I'm really into leaning against things. It doesn't require any effort, but it's slightly more demanding than sitting, so you don't feel completely sedentary because you're doing something that at least sort of resembles supporting your weight on two legs. Toon wasn't sure if they would make much progress on finding a ring from this perspective, but he started to think that neither he nor Hannah cared particularly about the outcome of the search, just so long as the journey was interesting. This place is pretty cool. Yeah. Interesting crowd down there, all types. Yeah, though I guess even in a place like this you can't avoid the obligatory guy sporting the blazer hoodie combo. The, hey look at me, I'm so cool and stylish but also super casual. That's called a high-low mix, and that guy is definitely not the only guy down there sporting such a combination. Oh, I'm sorry, did I just dunk on something that you actually hold dearly? Nah, dudes sporting the blazer hoodie combo are invariable douchebags. But what if he wasn't? That sounds like the start of a theory. The blazer hoodie combo is something he has a deep sentimental attachment to. His father walked out on the family when he was young, so he grew up looking up mostly to his grandfather, who tragically passed away when he was 12 years old. When his grandfather had passed, his older brother replaced him as father figure. He always admired his older brother, who was the coolest kid in the school and captain of the track team. The blazer belonged to his late grandfather, and the hoodie was his older brother's track sweatshirt that he gifted to his younger brother the day before he left for uni. Tragically, his brother was killed in a car accident that autumn, and he never returned from his first semester at uni. Whenever he finds himself feeling lonely, he puts on his brother's track hoodie and grandfather's blazer and goes out to drink to the memory. Did you have that one locked and loaded, or did you just cut bump with those on the fly? My brain works fast when theorizing about people. It's what I do in the tram, when everyone else is buried in their phones and people watching. Damn. All this time, whenever I was out in public, I'd be repeating the internal mantra, no need to feel self-conscious, nobody's watching you, they're all wrapped up in their own little world. Now I know that people watchers like you exist, and I'll never be able to do that again. People don't actually see you though. They see whatever they choose to project onto you. The guy down there? Who knows what his deal is? All we have are theories. And the theories that we come up with reveal more about us than they do about him, right? So in a way, people watching is a window to self-reflection. It's an exercise in human empathy. It's easy to play on stereotypes, say that guy must be a douche, but it's a lot more fun to try and come up with an alternate story. People aren't always what they seem. I let you come up with dark and macabre stories about what people's backstories might be. Now that you've said that, you have to share one of those dark thoughts. No, I shouldn't. But you're going to. No, I'm not going to. It's one of my rules. Some people deal better with dark thoughts by sharing them, but I found that I'm really bad at gauging what's appropriate or inappropriate to share. Sharing usually sends me on a continuing spiral that only ends up in bad places. So, no stories for tonight. Are you wondering if you're allowed to tell? Because I think we're at the point where you shouldn't have to wait for me to ask. My rule isn't to protect the audience, it's for me. And I think we're still at the point where there are questions that I'm not ready to answer. That doesn't mean I'm bothered by you asking. I mean, there are always going to be topics that aren't on the table, but you won't know what until you ask. I think it's great that you think that, and here was thinking I'd ruined the mood. It's okay for the mood to get somber. When the mood gets dark and serious, that doesn't mean it's ruined, right? After all, some people like it dark. You like it dark? Hey, you can have light without darkness, right? Sometimes you need to get somber and serious to make yourself enjoy the good times more. Good thinking. That's why I start every day by slamming my head against the wall. So that way, it'll feel good when I stop. The what? I grew up north of Brisbane. Do you know what the weather's like there? Nope, but I do know that I like talking about the weather to get away from unpleasant topics. Do you now? It's somewhat tropical. No bad days, good weather all year round. But there are so many days when it would be gorgeous out and I go by the local park and I see nobody out. No kids playing, no one out walking their dog. Sounds like a lame place to live. It kind of was. The thing is, when you never have bad weather, when there are no bad days, there can never really be good days either. But in Melbourne, when you get a nice day, people go outside. They don't squander it. And that's the case for dark and melancholy conversation? Pretty much. I mean, if everything's at a 10, it might as well be at a 1. You need range in life. I'm not sure. I think I'd be fine if I only ever saw the happy parts. It feels like a paradox, doesn't it? The people who seem to be the most obsessed with the pursuit of happiness seem to be the most unhappy and unfulfilled. Well, yeah. That's why they're so obsessed with pursuing happiness, because they don't have it. But there's a reason that people go to horror films. I don't think the opposite of happy is sad. I think maybe the opposite of happy is emptiness or general lack of feeling. You know, clinical depression isn't about feeling melancholy all the time, right? It's not about a feeling of constant sadness so much as a feeling of constant, well, nothing. Speaking from experience, that's a personal question. Yeah, I was hoping for a personal answer. I've never heard someone wax philosophical about emotions and then get reserved when asked about their emotions. A medical condition goes a little beyond the realm of talking about emotions. Let's just say that I'm no longer taking medication to treat clinical depression. Longer taking it as in you were taking it at one point. Yes, that's what I was trying to subtly imply before you explicitly pointed it out. Got it. Let's dance around things indirectly. That makes for good communication. Now you've got it. Innuendo is what makes conversation fun, if you know what I mean. Tom was grinning wildly when he delivered the line, but a silence followed. For a brief moment he was worried if he said something wrong, but an equally wide grin on Hannah's face told him that it was okay. Once the initial panic had passed, Tom found out he actually liked the experience. Although he worried that the silence would grow uncomfortably long, part of him wanted to continue living in that moment. Hi! You have a very interesting name, but thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Please don't eat me. You enjoy talking. Is that a complaint about me hogging the conversation? No, not at all. It's just you're a bit more expressive than you came across when I first approached you. I was conditioned to be meek from an early age. What you're seeing are the results of an extensive deprogramming effort. That's funny. I guess I can kind of see it, but I didn't want to assume based on... She trailed off, seeming a bit unsure of how to phrase her thought diplomatically. If you're feeling squeamish about making assumptions based on my ethnicity, you can rest assured that your assumptions are probably correct. You can probably deduce everything you need to know about my childhood from what you know about the kinds of expectations that Asian parents place on their kids. For some, meekness comes naturally. For me, it was a learned trait that came from growing up in a household where being well behaved was synonymous with being quiet. It's okay, we can say Asian. Funny, I never really thought about that part of it. When you talked about the expectations of Asian parents, I was thinking more about like scholastic and academic achievement. Oh, you can trust those assumptions as well. Like many immigrant parents, they want a son to be more successful than they are. But my mother was an MD and my father was an OD, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's supposed to be one level above that, let alone achievement. What's an OD? Doctor of Optometry. It was a big disappointment to my mother's parents, who were hoping their daughter would go for an ophthalmologist instead. Sounds like he really let the family down. I know it sounds like I'm saying it in jest, but let me tell you, whatever perceptions you might have about familial strictness, in my family they're stricter. Like, graduate second in your class and then get a remark from your mother at graduation that you could have been first if you'd hit the books a bit harder. That level of strict. Yeah, must have been tough for you to deal with that. My mom never said anything like that when we were driving to chemotherapy. Unfair. How about we stop playing the game of compare hardships, since I'm never going to win that one. What, you mean you don't want to spend time dwelling on the least pleasant parts of your personal history? Come on, dredging up childhood traumas is everyone's favorite hobby. Where's your sense of despair? Well, I do know some people who pay by the hour to dredge up childhood traumas. Alright, consider this free therapy session over. From now on, we only talk about happy things. What do you think about cats? Hate them. What? That makes two of us. Excuse me. No cat haters allowed in this stream. So much for happy thoughts. They are happy thoughts though. I like the image cats evoke. As a concept, cats are great, but as beasts, they're vile, spiteful, wretched creatures. How dare you! I'm glad we're on the same page. Disliking cats is probably the most unpopular opinion that I have. Toon enjoyed the easy rapper that seemed to have quickly built up between him and Hana, but it also made him feel an unease deep within himself. The thought of finding something precious and losing it filled him with panic. That sudden fear of loss stayed inside of him, growing stronger with every passing moment until he found himself physically trembling, his fingers losing their grip. What? Are you okay? Yeah, just felt a bit uneasy on my feet. Sorry about that. This place, well, it's not normal. You can say that again. This place definitely isn't normal. Toon felt himself lying as he said it. The truth was that the feeling of anxiety, physically gnawing at his body, were frequent occurrences that he had dealt with since his early teenage years. They were hauntingly normal for him. He stood uncomfortably in front of Hannah, searching for the normal thing to say. For the right thing to say. But he was pretty sure that chasing normalcy was the thing that had reduced him to a pile of mush, so instead he stayed silent. Sorry to have spent so much of your time. You definitely don't have to apologize for that. You're spending my time, I'm spending your time. It's mutual. And for a moment the two said nothing. With each passing moment, the compulsion to say something to break the silence shrank. They simply enjoyed each other's company. He looked over and realized that Hannah was resting with her eyes closed, rocking forward and back on the balls of her feet in a rhythmic sort of way. Are you... Shh. Can you hear it? He wasn't sure he could hear anything over or within the din of the crowd below, but he heard a familiar sound. The whirring of servos. Hey! Friend! Is this your ring? That's the one. Oh, on your middle finger, huh? That's nice. Great. Now you can get back to what you were doing. Yeah, great. Well, see you around. See you around. As she walked off, Toon found himself wondering why he just dismissed her as soon as the ring was found. As she walked toward the stairs, his mind raced for an excuse to continue the conversation. Maybe he was supposed to yell out, "Hey, you've got something on your sweater," or something like that. He brainstormed several ideas with a growing sense of urgency as he began descending the stairs. With each step she took, the likelihood of the conversation continuing felt like it would wane as she completely disappeared from sight. Damn. Good job, bro! Toon had spent enough time playing darts by now. The grip of the dart in his hand began to feel natural, like holding a pencil. It was easy to become so wrapped up in the game that he completely lost track of time. Everyone seemed to be preoccupied or otherwise uninterested in conversing with the teenage boy, so he turned back to the dartboard over to the wall to retrieve his darts. Playing darts was something that had started as a distraction, but something to keep himself busy during moments when there was nothing else to do. He also figured that it looked a great deal less awkward than burying his face in his phone, which was his usual go-to in places where he actually got service. In both cases, Toon's behavior was guided by the thought that if you look like you're focused on something, observers tend to pay no heed to the fact that you're by yourself. The more he practiced, the more he grew immersed in the activity. Over time, it became less of an escape from a potentially awkward moment and more of an interesting way to challenge himself. Despite the practice, his skills didn't seem to be improving much, but Toon didn't mind. He wasn't on a path to self-improvement. Still, it put him ahead of anyone who had never played a game of darts, which happened to be most people even in a setting like this. He chucked the dart after the dart without the care for those around him. Hey, I haven't seen you since breakfast. Hey, you know that line only works when you actually had breakfast together, right? Duly noted. That would make more sense. You like playing darts? Only when I don't have the company of others to keep me occupied. And he was thinking I'd teed you up perfectly to give me a lesson on how to play darts. Teed? What the fuck does teed mean? You probably don't want me teaching you how to play darts. I'm not very good. You had me fooled. Looks like you just got 2 consecutive bullseyes. The goal of darts isn't to hit the middle of the board. You see, each segment on the board is worth a different number of points. You start with a fixed number of points, usually 501 or 301. There's also 701, but that one is really fucking hard. and then you throw darts and deduct amounts from your number. The trick is... Actually, you were right. I don't want you to teach me how to play darts. That's a relief. If I did, you'd very quickly discover just how little I know about the subject of darts when it comes to anything other than the rules. Plus, out of all of the things there are to see here, this dartboard is probably among the least interesting. Oh boy, I can't wait to see something even more interesting than a dartboard. And follow me. Where are we going? I could tell you, or I could show you. Oh, Hannah was standing close enough to and for him to hear what sounded like a contented sigh. He wasn't sure exactly what separated a contented sigh from an exasperated one, or a sigh of boredom, or the wistful sort of sigh that accompanied thoughts of nostalgia. The side of the scrapyard was quite a mess, not the sort of picturesque vista that usually inspired feelings of awe. Leaving already? That's the idea. I did say I wanted to show you something interesting. If you're talking about what's at the end of the catwalk, I've been there before. I came from there, in fact. I'm not interested in what's at the other end of this catwalk. Then where are you going? Going down. What? Bro! Do you get a kick out of that? Not always. But you know the situations when you just want to eject from a conversation. Have you ever found yourself in a social situation that you just wanted to immediately leave behind? I didn't realize you were in such a hurry to get away from me. I wasn't. The problem is that the opportunity to make that grand exit never really coincides with the moments when you'd want it. But I still like to step out of a conversation from time to time, even when it's not called for, just to stay in practice. So your parlor tricks are more important to you than having a conversation with me? Not at all. I like talking about little parlor tricks like this. And what better way to start a conversation about them than by performing one? So now what? Well, I did have another reason for jumping down here. I did tell you there was something I wanted to show you, didn't I? Oh, so that stand wasn't the main attraction. Our destination is down there. His finger to and traced the path along several other platforms of descending height, painting a picture of what might follow. You can jump down. I don't have the feet of an athlete. Landing is less about your feet and more about what you do with your legs. Just bend your knees when you land and it'll distribute the impact force to your hip bone instead. Hanging like this is not the best time for me to learn lessons on athleticism, methinks. It's really simple. Just be sure not to lock your knees. The more words you say, the less I feel confident in my ability to execute them. Just do what comes naturally, I guess. I guess my slow and steady method worked. Ah! It's a vacuum cleaner? It's got kind of a Roomba-like appearance to it. The bots are all different. How did I get here? If all I can do is roll, how is it supposed to get up or down? Maybe it's not supposed to get down or up. Maybe this platform is where the bot's supposed to hang out until someone moves it to some other place. Someone like us. We probably shouldn't mess with it. You sure? If someone left it here, they're probably going to come looking for it. It would be a problem if you became responsible for getting the bot lost. How would you feel if someone moved something that you left in a specific location? If I left something like a purse in a place like this, I would hope someone would pick it up. Maybe China dinner at the cafe. But this little dude seems to have been intentionally left here. Maybe it was left here to finish a job. I think it's bored and waiting for someone to move it. Can we move it? We really shouldn't. Come on! Well, okay then. Is this what you wanted to show me? Nah, this is just one place on the way there. Ah, good. He wasn't concerned with appreciating the sights. His eyes moved with purpose, attempting to carve a path forward. We'll get there. Is this safe? I feel like I'm a bit young to be asking that question. Or answering it. You think young people need to take risks? Nope. I'm just too young and inexperienced to recognize danger when I see it. But if it puts your mind at ease, the rubbish we're stepping through has already been stripped for useful parts. So the risk of stepping on something like a live wire or an upturned screw is probably minimal. Probably. Like I said, I'm too young and inexperienced to recognize danger when I see it. Well, you're more experienced than I am, at least. Hannah seemed to grow more comfortable as she followed to on his stride, becoming less cautious with each step she took. Though the feeling of parts shifting under her feet made each step a bit uncertain, there was something pleasant about the crunching sound that the debris made as it shifted under the weight of their feet. Careful, it's easy to lose your footing out here if you're not careful. No worries, I've tripped many times before. Skinned knees are part of life. I thought you said you weren't an athlete. How do you wind up with skinned knees? Well, if I had the grace and balance of an athlete, I wouldn't have to worry about skinned knees, would I? For all his posturing earlier, Toon wasn't sure he shared Hannah's fearlessness. Taking a tumble onto a grassy hill or a pavement walkway was one thing. Stumbling and potentially landing face first onto a pile of tiny pieces of jagged metal was quite another. He found himself starting to worry if it had been a mistake to try escorting Hannah through this area. Actually, at this point, he wasn't escorting so much as trying to keep up. Hannah crested a hill in front of him, and as he opened his mouth to yell out a word of caution, she disappeared over the top and he lost sight of her. Oui? Be careful what you put your weight on. What, is there some pressure trap I'm about to step on? I mean stuff like that beam. You don't know what might be unstable or ready to collapse. Should I really be worried? I think so. This is the kind of place that's easy to get hurt. Then why did you bring me here? It's the easiest way to get to where we're going. Ah, so the scrapyard isn't the main attraction. Well, that's a relief. There she goes. So, what here is dangerous? Just the craft that we're stepping through? There's nothing sharp or long enough that it'll break the soles of your shoes, but it's not the kind of surface that you want to land on face first. Noted. I'll try to avoid landing face first. I guess I should exercise a bit more caution, huh? Sorry if I'm a bit rambunctious. I guess I'm bad at evaluating risk. Is that a chronic condition? Well, I followed you here, didn't I? Anything ahead I should take note of? Just more of the same. Sweet, then I guess I know what to expect. This is where we're going, right? Yeah. He wasn't sure if Hannah was growing impatient with him or just eager to get onto the next part of the journey. I mean, where are you guys going? To a black screen. Okay, to a loading screen. Okay, that is fair. That is fair. You guys are really proud of the walking animation you made for those two, huh? Whoa! Whoa! What? What? What the fuck? If your goal was to transition to a more interesting room, I'd say you failed. This hallway tells its own story. I'm struggling to see what that story might be. The walls here are barren. Nobody thought to cover them up with anything. They're conspicuously naked. Why isn't anyone taking the time to make this place nicer? Maybe the person tasked with decorating this place preferred a minimalist approach. There's no accounting for taste. Yeah, exactly. He's fucking going, man. That's the ultimate cop-out answer. There's no accounting for taste. Of course there is. Taste has to come from somewhere. The human mind is a complex thing. Why should it fall on me to explain it? What happened to the armchair sociologist who was explaining to me earlier how friendships are formed? As far as I'm concerned, some parts of the mind are completely ineffable. I'm the kind of person who looks at the ineffable and doesn't begin to trying to F it. Really, because you strike me as the type of guy who tried to F anything that wasn't nailed down. Sounds like the kind of person you should run away from. I guess I'm too young and inexperienced to recognize danger when I see it. Careful, don't hurt yourself. Do you look like someone who's worried about hurting himself? You look more like one of those walking and talking tour guys who has to walk backwards everywhere they go. I'm not sure if that's a demographic that's really known for self-destructive behavior. Hey, that profession is more hazardous than you think. I had a friend who was touring uni campuses and he got a tour from a guy who was backwards walking and talking so hard that he tripped into a fountain. Ooh. I'm not hurt, thanks for asking. Well, at least you didn't fall face first, so you're good. I'm sorry, I know I messed up order of operations. First confirm safety, then have a good laugh at your expense. But sometimes you just feel a good laugh coming on and you don't want to suppress it. Tuan ordinarily would have been a bit ashamed to have taken a tumble, but as Hannah got the remaining giggles out of her systems, he saw a twinkle in her eye that made him sure that she was enjoying herself. So, who do we have to thank for that wonderfully comedic moment? The bot seemed dog-like in the way it looked up at her with anticipation, rocking back and forth on its hindquarters. Can I pet it? Look at her face! Can I pet it? Sure, go ahead. Ah! Goodbye. Why did you do that? Why did I do what? Tell me it was okay to pet it. I thought you wanted to pet him. Yeah, I wanted to, but I wasn't asking for your permission. What? You just seemed really bothered when I said not to touch them. The other times, I mean. I didn't need your permission. I was asking your opinion. You know, since you seem to be such an expert on this place. I thought I'd ask, hey, any risks associated with what I'm about to do, you know, so I can make an informed decision. So imagine my surprise when I do the one action you decided to greenlight and ends up with smarting fingers. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. Several moments passed in silence as they continued walking. Tuan wasn't sure whether it was a good idea to say something in his defense, but the silence seemed even worse, so he started talking. I thought he'd be really disappointed if I said it would be a bad idea to pet him. Like I said, I wasn't asking for your permission. If I wasn't prepared to hear no as an answer, I wouldn't have asked. I'd very much appreciate it if, when I ask a question, you actually say what you think rather than telling me what you think I want to hear. I'm sorry. You're forgiven. I guess that dramatic outburst was a little more than what the situation called for. But geez, sharp pinching pain is the worst. Worse than throbbing pain? Of course. Why do you think I found it so easy to laugh at your stumble? Throbbing pain is comedy, sharp pain is tragedy. Well, at the very least, I hope I've persuaded you of the dangers of backwards walking and talking. Indeed, you should probably do the rest of this hallway walking face forward. Sounds like a challenge. Thanks for coming out for tonight's tour. This marks the end of our tour of the nondescript hallway. If you think anything is nondescript, you need to come up with better descriptors. I can come up with several. Dull, sterile, boring. Nondescript is such a great word though. Have you ever read Lovecraft? So many of the monsters in his book were so unimaginable terrifying that their appearance defied explanation. Mighty convenient that for the guy who was writing the books. Who was writing the books? Lovecraft. I just said that. Lovecraft is the name of the author? For real? Yeah. Why would someone name their kid after the word that people use to describe eldritch horrors? You're going to have a real cow when you hear about a guy named Mud. Let me guess. His name was Mud. Indeed. Alright, where the fuck are you guys? As they scrutinized the jars on the shelf, Tua couldn't begin to guess what substances they contain. The jars showed signs of being left here long enough to gather dust and were yellowing labels. A mere tap would be enough to send them tumbling off the shelf. Now, this is interesting. Why do you suppose they stick these way out here? Try reading some of the labels and you might get a clue. It's written in some language I don't understand. It's Latin. At least some of them are. You speak Latin? I don't speak Latin per se, but I've sort of developed an ad hoc understanding when it comes to common words, phrases, acronyms, etc. Those are Latin phrases, I take it. Yes, now that you explained my joke, it's hilarious. Does your brain come up with wordplay like that on the fly, or you have the other line locked and loaded for any time the subject of Latin comes up? When I was a kid, I spent 2 years taking an after-school linguistics course because my mom thought it was an English class for non-native speakers. You pick up some things along the way, and 6-year-old brains often try to cram as much of what they've learned into a single sentence or paragraph. I'm not 6 years old anymore, but I guess the habit stuck. I don't suppose you can read any of these labels? Nope, but if you see one that says Memento Mori, you should take notice of the fact that you're going to die. What, is that some kind of deadly poison? No, Memento Mori, remember your mortality. That's what it means. 6 years old and they were already teaching you to ponder the fact that your life would end one day? What kind of linguistics class were you enrolled in? I was the youngest person in the class by about 5 years, if that tells you anything. That must have been tough to deal with. Nah, it was just the start of a lifelong pattern of me feeling more comfortable around my elders while constantly struggling to connect with my peers. Oh, and he was thinking we were developing a meaningful rapport. You think we're peers? Because you're pretty peerless when it comes to charm. Aw, shucks. I'm not sure whether I should be embarrassed to be on the receiving end of a compliment, or whether I should feel embarrassed for you after hearing use such a cheesy line. Jesus fucking Christ. I have never seen a single Unus Annus thingy, so I don't know what you're talking about. My compliments are like Cheetos, artificially created in a lab and not good for you at all. When she laughed, there was a certain sparkle in her eye, and on any other night, he might get caught up thinking about why people seemed to be on the verge of crying when they laughed. But in this moment, all he could dwell on was how warm it made him feel to see her laughing. How about this one? I can't read it. Yeah, but you can see that it's shaking, right? Looks like there's something trapped inside. Wow, that's kind of creepy. Do you suppose he thought to do something about it? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Oh, whoa, it's moving! Oh! Whatever's in this jar wants to be out, I think. Do you think it ought to be out? I don't know. Do you think it ought to be trapped? It doesn't really strike me as a nefarious thing, but it's the strongest endorsement I can give. Thank you. Toon felt a warm glow around them, and it occurred to him that perhaps this was the inverse of what some people might feel upon seeing a benevolent spirit. Did you hear that? If you heard someone whisper thank you, then yes, I heard it too. Do you think we did something we shouldn't have? What's this we stuff? 2 hands touched the jar and they were both yours. Yeah, but I get the feeling that we just unleashed something. I got that impression as well. Do you think we made a mistake? I think that you opened the jar that without your interference would have shattered anyway, so I'm not sure that our being here really changed anything. You're right, what if your existence here doesn't really change anything? I wasn't trying to be existential with that comment. So you did it without even trying? Wow, you're real natural. Shucks, nobody's ever told me I have a talent for bringing up existential ambivalence. Well, damn the consequences, I'm glad we came here. I'm glad we came here too. Do you ever get the feeling like if you're already sort of committed to a line of action, but you're still not sure whether it's going to lead to something great or something that could hurt you? Are we still talking about the jar? Well, now that you said it, that pretense is gone. Let's get a move on, shall we? Ooh. Anyway, the thing I wanted to show you is here. What the fuck? Huh? Where the Toon's heart was pounding violently, but he knew himself well enough that it wasn't a fear of hates that was making his heart race. I hope you're not afraid of hates. I think it's natural to be afraid when confronted with a new environment that could be potentially lethal. Oh, no worry about the lethality. Ah! What the fuck, bro? See? Nothing to be afraid of. Hannah touched him in a sort of way Tuan would have expected from her, just to confirm that he was really standing in front of her, not some illusion. But her hand seemed to linger on his chest several moments longer than a simple spot check ought to have taken. He found himself feeling a bit disappointed when she finally withdrew her hand. Doesn't seem pleasant. The fall, I mean. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you'd survive doesn't mean it would be enjoyable. I know roller coasters are mostly safe, but I avoid them nonetheless. The falling does take a bit of getting used to. There's some deep primal fear in your body that gets unleashed when it realizes that it's had nothing to support its weight for several seconds. You get used to it over time. I get it must be an exhilarating experience once you get past the sheer terror of it. What I want to know is how you've repeated it enough times to get over the fear. What compels a person to do that sort of thing? Truth be told, I don't know if I've gotten over the fear. Some people like to embrace the terror. It's the same reason that people go to horror movies or read books that make them cry. Or listen to albums that make them sob into their pillow. Yeah, some people just want to feel something even if that something isn't warm and cuddly feelings. Is that downtown? I think so, but I don't really know the area that well, so you'd have to tell me if you recognize anything. I don't recognize anything specific, but judging from the number of rooftop bars, I'd say you're right about location. Do you suppose any of them can see us up here? I don't know. It's kind of amazing to look at the city like this. I know how we got up here from down there, I'll never know. I just meant it's very picturesque. The city has a certain kind of beauty to it. It seems lived in. Most cities do. That's why they're cities. People live there. But some cities seem so sterile. Skyscrapers and the like, uniform suburbs. You know, the kind of things that look like they were churned out of a factory on an assembly line. Cities created neighborhood by neighborhood instead of building by building. It is quite pretty to look at. Is it safe to sit like that? Look, if I can step off this platform, it would be crazy for me to be shy about letting my legs dangle over the edge. As Hannah swung her legs back and forth, Toon was reminded of the days in his youth when his friends sat perched on a fence swinging their legs in a similar fashion. Toon wasn't sure why all of his memories of dangling legs lackadaisically were of early childhood. Maybe as his legs grew longer, his desire to try and climb on top of old tall structures solely for the sake of sitting on them had waned.
Hi! Good evening! How are you doing?
Hannah seemed utterly carefree, and the thought occurred to Tuan that it had been a long time since he had seen anyone his age acting in a way that could be described as carefree. It appeared everyone he knew had spent their life gradually accumulating more cares, never stopping to wonder whether having a great number of things to fret over was truly a good thing. Good! That's good! I'm also doing good. I keep stumbling over words, but that's nothing new. How's the stream going? It's going good. I don't think I'm going to actually get to the second game I had planned for today, because this seems to be quite a little longer than I had thought it was. At a glance, the cityscape below them seemed vivid and full of detail, but the more that Tuan tried concentrating on any particular part of it, the more his vision blurred. From up here, the city's neighborhoods all seemed to run together, as if the actual structure of the buildings were indifferent to the dividing lines its inhabitants tried to draw. Although the city was divided into different regions, there was no clear point at which North Melbourne ended and Carlton began. Each city block acted as a discrete yet indistinct part of a larger whole. You know, I should be able to see my house from here, but I can't. Or at the very least, I can't recognize it. Actually, I can't recognize anything. When I look at the broad picture, I say, oh yeah, that's totally the Melbourne skyline, but I can't pick out a single facet or landmark that it's where it should be. It's uncanny, isn't it? It certainly has a dreamlike quality to it. Do you think we're in a dream? No, but I have considered the possibility that maybe I'm in a dream and you don't exist. Really? I was thinking it was the other way around. I'm the one who's dreaming and you're the one who doesn't exist. I guess it's all about perspective. Considering the number of dreams that end with the sensation of falling, sitting perched on a rail platform above the clouds would be a good setting for the climax of a dream. Maybe when you stepped off the platform you just tumbled into a different dream. Maybe it doesn't matter if existence is but an illusion, just so long as we're here to experience it. The two sat in silence a few moments longer, stealing periodic glances at each other. Tuan wondered what might be happening in Hannah's head. Perhaps Hannah's mind was taking up with thoughts of what Tuan was pondering. Oddly, despite the silence, they seemed to have grown closer, as if somehow imagining what another person was thinking was somehow enough to make you feel as if you knew them better. Are you guys going to kiss? You know, if the purpose of coming here was just to sit and stare longingly into each other's eyes, we could have done it back at the cafe. I came up here to admire the view, and that's what I'm doing. That's a good line. But for all your verbal wit, you're sure slow to act. Don't you think you're long overdue to make a move? Oh! Oh! Why did it take you so long? It's easier to say something clever than to say something sincere. Oh, that's cute as fuck, dude. Aha. Ah! No! No kiss? No? Aww. I lied to you earlier. About what? Remember when I told you about my mother's leukemia diagnosis? How I was 15 years old at the time my father left us? Yeah, I remember. Well, I lied about one thing. My mom wasn't the one who got the leukemia diagnosis. Ah! This hair isn't mine. 6 months of chemo were not kind to me. I felt like a fraud every time I tried wearing someone else's hair, so I got this synthetic prop wig from a costume shop. I decided if I was going to lie to the world about having hair, I might as well go full Rapunzel. I like to hear you say something. I shouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't make light of someone else's ailment. You take shots at other people when it's something trivial, and you take shots at yourself when it's something that matters. So when you started joking about cancer, I figured you were talking about yourself. It was that obvious? Not at first, but the more you talk to someone, the more you come to understand them. Well, the hair looks good on you, though. You interrupted something. I know. I was leaning into... I know. I'd still like to if you'd like to. Sorry, the mood is gone. My fault, I ruined it. You need to reset the scene. It sounded like a request. It was. Listen! I want that kiss! Tuan knew the rules of conduct in the terminal. As the last familiar sign of the cafe slowly receded into the distance, he came to realize they were now entering a world of their own construction. They were in a place without rules handed down to them by whoever policed behavior in the cafe. The idea that the two were free to do as they pleased was a thrilling yet frightening concept. Perhaps thrilling and frightening didn't have such different meanings. Toon wasn't sure where they were walking to. Perhaps they were heading towards where they had originally come from, or they were moving onward only to leave the past behind them. But Toon knew for certain they would eventually need to turn back. Neither of you are going home before you have kissed, I swear to God. Oh, train. Despite the revelation that had come only moments earlier, Toon felt oddly at peace. Hana had shared a secret with him. It was an affirming thing. It was, in a way, what he had expected. In fact, things were happening almost exactly as he had imagined, and that filled him with an overwhelming sense of dread, the fear that someone might discover him for who he was. He felt his heartbeat quicken as his mind raced for what would come next, and the uncertainty seemed to manifest as a sort of pain in his chest. He started feeling the sharp and cold prick of pins and needles on the skin of his legs, and he suddenly wanted nothing but for the moment to be over. As his eyes closed, the world around him became nothing but blackness. He felt only the panging sensation coursing through his body until he opened his eyes, and then realized that he was panting and that Hana was rubbing his back. Oh. Are you okay? Chronically, no, but I'm fine right now. It's an anxiety attack. They happen sometimes when I get afraid. No, not that you have to, but I feel better if you had a quip. I was just thinking it's a good thing it didn't happen when we were sitting on the edge. It never happens when I'm in a physically precarious Never. It's always the moments when it seems like everything is in a comfortable place, free from any sense of peril. Because when everything is going right, it only takes the littlest things to upset that and make everything go wrong. Is it what I said before? Not how you think. It's not what you said, it's what I didn't say. What didn't you say? I knew. What? Natural redheads rarely have blue eyes. That was my first clue. And when you started talking about Kemo, that was when I put it together. You knew. Yes. I wouldn't have the courage to talk to you otherwise. Because of your friendships with an expiration date? Oh my fucking god, are you kidding me? Actually, you know what? You don't deserve that kiss. Fuck you. The best friendships I ever made were the ones that came with an expiration date. That's what you said earlier. I think I understand now. He could see a redness around the corners of her eyes. It was a look he was familiar with, but he was used to seeing it in the mirror, the moment right before the tears started to flow. But the tears never came, and Hana's eyes remained fixed on his, her gaze brimming with the sadness, frustration or anger that Toon couldn't quite place. How fucking dare you? You only talked to her because you knew, haha, lol. That's awful, my dude! That's what you see me as? A girl with an expiration date? It's not because of what you are. It's because of what I am. I didn't want to reduce everything to... I'd be carrying around a lot of baggage. I came here because I wanted to feel normal for just one night. That's what I wanted too. I just wanted to leave everything behind and just feel normal. I guess we both messed up pretty bad, but I don't mind. He suddenly became aware that the lips were nearly close enough to touch. But that moment, that feeling of being so close to kissing, felt so perfect that he couldn't bring himself to end it by kissing her. Are you dumb? To continue to enjoy each other's company, teetering on the brink of a kind of physical intimacy that Toon himself both longed for and dreaded. He wondered what she was feeling. He wondered if she had the same thoughts about him. But as time passed, his fears and concerns began to melt away, and he found himself simply taking joy from the fact that he was holding her and she was holding him. And regardless of why they were here, what they were thinking, or what was in store for them, they were both here together. You guys, I am... Sana buried her face in his shoulders too and felt her shaking in his arms. He felt her hot tears as they soaked through the fabric of his shirt. He wondered if these tears were the kind that people fondly expressed as coming from a good cry. Moments later, he felt tears on his own cheeks. His first reflex was to hide them, and he had so many times before. And yet, as he felt the warmth streaming down his cheeks, he could see nothing but a kind, beautiful acceptance in Hana's eyes. Toon wondered if there was a world in which a tram might pull up to this platform in the sky, so he and Hana might board it to be whisked away and never return home. Though he had a hunch she was thinking the same thing. They both knew they couldn't ride away together, but they could at least escape the platform, if only for a moment. Are you ready? As long as it's with you. Just don't let go of my hand. Toon felt Hana's grip on his hand tighten as they tumbled off the edge together. feeling of exhilaration passed just as quickly as it had come. As Tuan stared into Hana's wide, sparkling eyes, he found himself no longer feeling the same longing and excitement that he had felt before. It was replaced with a new feeling. He felt a sense of contentment that made the moment feel so perfect that he knew they had to find a perfect way to end it before something came along to ruin it. With no words to share, they had only the sound of each other's footsteps, and as they walked, Tuan became increasingly aware of Hana varying the pace of her footsteps ever so slightly to keep up with his. He slowed to match her pace, and within a few strides they were walking in lockstep. And then he found himself slowing down again, letting Hana take the lead only for her to slow her own steps once more. Each of them began walking slower, almost as if they were in a race that both of them were determined not to win. You know we can't keep doing this all day. Try me. As time passed, Tuan saw that Hana's eyes were focused on nothing in particular, in a way that told him that her mind was someplace else. Strangely, it comforted him to know that Hana, even when she was with him enjoying the company, did not seem to feel the need to be perpetually present. She was willing to let her mind wander, and as Tuan retreated deeper into his own thoughts, he wondered if perhaps the most intimate thing that two people could do was each be alone together. Him in his own little world, and she in hers, and each enjoying the company of the other while also absorbed in the privacy of their own thoughts. You are out tonight looking for something very specific. Yeah, it might not be that specific thing. I might not be that specific thing. And if that's true, then I'm okay with it. And if it's not, then I guess I'm okay with that too. Me too. At least I hope so. The first time they had passed a shelf of glass jars, Tuan had seen them as a motley assortment of unrelated items. It was at first glance a mess. But the more that Tuan concentrated on any given jar, the more he came to realize that each one was cut to a specific shape or size and contained a specific item. He looked at Hana, who seemed to be absorbed in her own thoughts, and wondered if she too was observing the jars in front of them, or if perhaps her mind was contemplating something else entirely, tuning over thoughts of the evening they had spent together, or the time they had shared on the train platform. You think that I'm carrying around a lot of pain. You're right, I just assumed it. Tuan became aware of the flaws, limitations and shortcomings that were an inescapable part of who he was. It served as a reminder that every moment he lived was a sort of gift. As long as he was enjoying being allowed to experience the moment, he really felt he had nothing to complain about. Of course, he still felt pain and didn't enjoy it. His position of accepting the moment wasn't something he had come to easily. But now he was so firmly rooted in his stance, nothing that happened around him was going to change it.
Hello, good evening.
How are you doing? Tuan thought he should vocalize this, and yet it seemed selfish to do so in front of Hana, who very well might not be carrying that same sort of self-acceptance. And if the moment called for him to be silent, he was okay with that. I've been thinking about myself. Okay. I assumed that you were carrying around a lot of pain, not because of anything about you in particular. It's because I assume everyone is carrying around a lot of pain. Because it makes it easier when I assume that everyone else is going through the same thing. I think I figured out one thing about you. I think you like me. Is that such a surprise? I just gave you a new piece of information. It's a pretty big one. Did you think this was going to be the sort of thing where you reveal some big thing and then I say I like you anyway? Because it's different from that. Not for me anyway. You're carrying around some stuff that's a part of who I am. And I accept that. I like you. I like all of you. And when I say that, I'm not just saying it just because I want the rest of you, but because I want that specific part of you for no reason other than that it's a part of you. Because every part of you is a part of a cohesive whole, and you can't remove any of it without changing who you are. It's like an atom, where if you remove a single proton, you alter its composition and it becomes something else that's fundamentally different from what it was before. You don't get to carve out your favorite or least favorite parts. So when I say I like you, I mean I like all of you, because that's the only way for me to say that I like you and actually mean it. You're not the first person who's ever said something like this to me before, you know? I've heard it in counseling before. But I think you're the first person who's ever said that and made me believe it. The most offensive way for someone to lie to you is simply tell you what they think you want to hear. Yeah, you get it. You guys are cute. Is this animated or do I actually click? Oh, I click. Okay, never mind. Are you ready to do this? I'm ready as long as you're doing it with me. Then don't let go of my hand. Wait, are both of you dead? Or is only one of you dead and the other one will be on the other side of the door? Tom waited for the moment when Hannah's form would start to fade, vanishing in the way that visitors from beyond the grave always did upon leaving the terminal. But moments passed and he realized that the feeling of her hand in his was still just as real and tangible as it had been on the other side of the boundary that separated the terminal from the land of the living. Yay! You're both alive! Are you? I'm still here. Are you going for my next round of chemo tomorrow? Say, don't you think you're long overdue? Aww! Yay! That's cute. Aww. That was cute. Maybe the heads do deserve some rights. No, excuse me. Oh wow, that's over 2 hours. I didn't think there was this much still left to the game. Holy fuck. I don't think it would be a good idea to actually get started on the other one now. Because that one is it's not that long a game, but it's also longer than less than an hour that I still have left tonight.
Thank you for the hydrate time.
But I can say for sure this time we have finished Necrobarista. For round of Hades, absolutely the fuck not. What the hell? One round of Hades is going to be over in less than 3 minutes. When I play it. You know that. Well, we can say for sure now that we finished Necrobarista. I think there's actually more DLC coming at some point. But so far they have not published any aside from this Walking to the Sky thing. And I don't know when that one came out, so... It was a good game. I am honestly not quite sure what exactly it wanted to tell me aside from, I don't know, there's something to be found in life before you die or something. So that's a thing. But I like the character designs. Very, very much. And I mean, they managed to do quite a lot with this very small area you had. I mean, you basically only had the cafe. Just gonna do a funny here and switch over to the screen. Hello. It was good. It was good. I'm gonna actually... Yeah, I don't think we have anything else we could really fit in tonight. I'm just gonna take this as a chance to end the stream here. And we're gonna get started on Heaven Will Be Mine next time, which is on Wednesday. I think that is a good idea. It was pretty interesting. Yeah. It was. It was. I like it. Alrighty. Who should we... Oh yeah, hell yeah. You know who we're gonna raid? V, now that V is finished with the normal Persona 5, she's playing Persona 4, Persona 4, not Persona 5, sorry. Persona 4, she's playing Persona 4 dancing all night. I love that one. Like, I love the Persona dancing games. I know they're just, hey, we want your fucking money, we're Atlas, but I like them. So let's say hi. It's a little short tonight. Here's a raid message. Thank you guys so much for coming. Let me switch screen once more and put on a song for you. Nope, that is not working like I wanted. There we go. See you all on Wednesday. I will post the schedule later. Good night and bye bye.